really a tunnel. It was a pipe. And they
Hi,
always thought
sorry.
they were suffocating. They were going to
Hi,
suffocate.
Kevin. Hi,
And then they'd
love.
open
How
up
are
the
you?
pipe, and
Hi,
it was
Jane.
like 3.5 feet high. This isn't, we hear tunnels is bad, but pipes are worse. And
Pipes are
the
worse
stories
than
I heard were
tunnels.
incredible.
What?
But I just said, was there any sign of potential love or affection? And there
Like,
were
did they
none
wink at you?
whatsoever. It was amazing.
Did they throw
to me.
you a
There was
piece of
nothing
bread?
Like, here, take this. It's a little extra meal or something. They lived like hell. I don't know. They seemed to be. They were amazing to me because they seemed to be pretty normal. They weren't scarred, but I guarantee underneath they have to be scarred. And one was there for 300.
This guy's a nutbag.
Days. Another was there for.
This guy
about
is like out of
180
touch with
days.
reality,
You know, a long time.
nutbag-ish.
These are
I'm not
people that
even
have
like
been
sugarcoating
really,
it.
really horribly treated. I've never seen anything like it. Actually, I was very
Yeah,
surprised to
well,
hear the
you
answer.
wouldn't have because you've never done anything like
Are
that.
there 2 or 3 countries that on your list that you feel are farther
Hi,
along
Oren.
in getting there?
Wow, so disconnected.
I think there are,
Hi,
I
Mama
think there are
sis.
many that want to get rid of tariffs right now. European Union, I mean, as badly as they've treated us, they've brought their car tariffs essentially off. I guess they brought it down to 2.5, and I hear maybe to nothing.
What?
But it's not only tariffs; it's non-monetary tariffs.
Yeah,
It's
see?
tariffs
Here's
where
the
they put
moving
things on that
goalpost.
make it impossible for you to sell a car. It's not a money
Moving
thing.
goalpost. We want
They
them
make
to
it
buy
so
our
difficult,
shit.
The standards and the tests. They drop a bowling
want
ball
them
on the
to
top
buy
of
our
your car
shit.
from 20 feet up in the air, and if there's
It's
a
not
little
good
dent,
enough.
They say, no, I'm sorry, your car doesn't qualify. When the same car from Germany or anything would dent likewise, unless you can have an army tank, it's going to dent. So they come up with rules and regulations that are just designed for one reason, that you can't sell your product in those countries, and we're not going to let that happen. Those are called non-monetary barriers. They make barriers that are so tough that it's impossible to qualify.
Oh my
so
God.
tariffs are a big part of it, but there's another big part of it, and that's barriers. They also do something else. They manipulate their currency, and they drive it down. They want to drive it. They want to have low
Hi,
currencies.
Teresa. Hi,
It
beautiful
sounds
T.
better to have a high currency, a strong dollar or whatever, but
Just got
they
filing a
bring their
whistleblower.
currency
Fuck
down.
yeah.
And when it
Kevin,
competes
be
with our
strong.
currency, it's very hard to sell a tractor.
Our cars don't
It's
meet
very
EU
hard to
emission
sell
standards.
Product because their currency is
We want
low
them to
and
change
ours
their
is
standards, Lee.
much higher.
Do you
Relatively.
understand that? Do you
And so
understand?
it makes it very hard. I speak to a lot of companies that do business.
He wants
tractor
them to
companies,
change their
and they say it's so
standards.
hard to sell because what they've done is they've lowered
I'm not
the yen
kidding.
or they've lowered the yuan or they've lowered their currency, so that it's very hard to compete.
We don't manipulate
want
our
that either.
currency. Oh, wait,
So we
yes,
have
we
a lot
do.
of things that we're talking
Got
about,
fired
but
for
we're gonna
filing
fix
an
it
OSHA
properly,
complaint? Hell
and it's gonna
no,
be fair to
Kevin.
everybody. And in the end, I think we're going to have
You
a world that does
go.
a lot better.
You go, my
But they have
friend.
to respect the United States. And
Sorry you're
nobody
going
but
through
me
that.
would do this. Nobody but me would do this. It would be nice to serve a nice, easy term. But we have an opportunity to change
He
the fabric of our country.
single-handedly
We have an
caused
opportunity
this.
to reset the table on trade. We lose
Oh, right, EU won't
billions of
change. They're not
dollars. We
going to
lose
change.
close to $2 trillion a year on trade. We lose $1 trillion a year to China. $1 trillion. We
Wait, a
lose
trillion total or a trillion to
hundreds
China?
of
That's right,
billions of
babe.
dollars
I got
a year on
you.
trade to China. We lose
I'm glad to
hundreds
see you.
of billions of dollars
Hi,
overall.
Lee.
Probably close to $2 trillion. Why would we do that? Number one, why would we do that? And then you have to say,
Because-
is it sustainable? Then you hear about all of the people that say, well, deficits.
We are
if
a
have
service
deficit with the
economy,
country, or the
mostly,
country has
not a
big
manufacturing
surplus with us,
economy.
Like China has a massive surplus that they take and they spend on their military. Well, we don't want that.
What? They
I
are
don't want
going
them
to.
take
That's what they
500,
do. That's what
$600
we
billion a
do.
year and spend it on their military.
That's what we
I don't
do.
want them spending money on their military.
Too
and I shouldn't have
bad.
to spend money. We shouldn't have to spend
Too-
it either.
Too bad.
Because, hopefully, and I said this to President Xi, hopefully it's money that we're never going to use. In other words, because we're not going to use those.
Wait, what are
incredible
you saying
weapons
now that the
we have
tariffs
and
aren't to
that they
replace
have.
revenue to run the
We don't
government?
want
They're
that.
now for
So,
military?
It's going to be very interesting. It's the only
This
chance
man has no grasp
our
of what they've
our
told him to
country will
represent.
have to reset the table. Because no other president.
Okay, I'm just going to stop him right now. I do need to listen to the whole thing. I missed part of the beginning. But this is not going to work. This is not. all of the Jamie fucking Dimon, okay, the head of, what is he head of now? JP Morgan, or I don't know what the fuck he's head of, but he's like one of the top financial dicks they want to suck. All right, let's put it that way. Howard Nutlicker would be so, oh my God, hold on. Disco balls. Okay. JP Morgan, thank you. That's what I thought. Jamie Dimon this morning was like, hair on fire. This is fucked up. Okay? So even one of the guys who would benefit the most from being able to buy more of his financial partners when they all go into distress, right? Jamie Dimon would love to make money off of this president. Even he is like, this is nutbag, okay? Because here's the deal. First, the tariffs are because of drugs on the border. Then the tariffs are because we have trade deficits with countries, which actually are natural and will happen when you have smaller countries, different products, unique products, whatever. Trade deficits will happen. They're fine. They're a normal function of trade. It's not an even one-to-one. You know, Tonga is not going to buy all of our Ford F1 or whatever they, like we're not going to force countries to buy our shit. That is not, we are not the biggest, I mean, we might be a big economy for selling, but guess what? There are more people in other parts of the world than there are fucking here. And here's the other thing. Sorry, there's just so much. You have the, oh God. You have part of this administration. Yeah, they don't have a room for an F-150. You have this administration and all of the talking heads associated with this administration. Bessent, Navarro, Nutlicker. I haven't really heard many others. Some randos. Oh, the agricultural secretary. She's a fucking idiot. Okay, let me tell you about the agricultural secretary. She turned out to be a huge bait and switch. If anybody thought she was anywhere near normal, I've got news for you. Hi, Easily. And then you have Scott Bessent saying there's not going to be a recession. That's what he said yesterday. This is just, buy the dip. Buy the dip. And then Howard Nutlicker this morning said, hi, Carrie. Nutlicker didn't say hi to Carrie, but Nutlicker said this morning, nothing to see here. Everybody's coming to the table, but won't answer the question because out of the same side of his mouth, he says, these tariffs settle a score with other countries. And the negotiation that they desire is to make it as advantageous for the United States, even to the detriment of the other country. He doesn't want China or Germany to spend tariff revenue that they collect for their country on their own country. It's ridiculous. It's totally banana bonkers. And buy the dip or catch the knife. Yeah. That's why this market to me is like no market I've ever seen. I've never seen, I don't know. And the thing about the market is the volatility is the issue, right? Like these guys have presented policies that don't make any sense, and they keep shifting the goalpost because first it's drugs on the border, then it's trade deficits, which is where I stopped. And now it becomes things like, oh, it's not only the trade deficit, but it's that you need to buy our stuff. So the rules of international trade are going to change completely all at once. Countries, when this was announced, already started connecting with each other and creating new trade relationships. We are going to be left in the proverbial dust. Now, granted, we still are a major purchaser. There's no doubt. But when people start to get laid off because trade tariffs stop work, lower consumption, when the layoffs begin here, okay, then those people, they're not going to buy the $20 Shein item anymore that used to be $5, but now is $20 because of some tariff, just as an example. Make it any country you want. If you want your something chocolate or whatever it is, coffee, people will stop buying it. Plus, the more people that get laid off, the more we go into recession where people can't, and inflation, when you impose tariffs, inflation goes up. So your dollar is worth less. Hi, Peace Love. How are you, darling? Hi, Paulina. I know, what a fucking day. Well, it's just one in a row, right? This is one in a row. I'm going to check on that other hearing. They have not started. Maybe they're all like paying attention to Netanyahu, the war criminal. Disgusting. And I won't make you listen to it again, but I missed the first part of his White House remarks, and I really wanted to. Yes. Max. That's right, Maxie. That's right, everybody. Give it up for Max. Tariffs cannot be a floor wax and dessert topping. And then, oh yeah, wait a minute. I forgot about Bonus Jonas. Smeagol, Peter Navarro, is out there today talking about that external revenue service, right? Oh, the tariffs are actually going to increase the revenue for the country. What? I understand that what they want to do, like they've written about it. They've talked about it. This is not a secret. This is not me making up in my head what they're going to do. This is actually what they've said they want to do, which is they want to eliminate income taxes using tariff revenue. That's one scenario. I'm not saying that they're going to do it piece for piece, but the intimation on what they write is that they want tariffs to replace revenue. But that means you're just paying taxes in different ways, and it's a use tax. And guess who that hurts? Middle and lower in poverty, people in poverty and middle class. That's who it really, really stings. That's who stops buying shit. And a good economy is when people are buying shit and making shit. And the fantasy that he's going to bring a significant amount of manufacturing back to the States is ludicrous. Number one, it won't happen. Number two, it would take years if they even tried. There's no fucking way. Then you're upending other global economies, you doofus. Regardless of what these guys want to think and how much they just want to take more land and resources from other countries, and I get that that's really the end goal, is that these trade agreements that they're going to strike are going to include a lot of non-tariff things like buy our stupid potatoes. You know, our potatoes aren't stupid. I love potatoes. Buy our McDonald's French fries, and we won't help you. Militarily, we won't help at all, or we will help you if you do these things. Like, it's extortion. That's what this administration wants to do. And I won't say Trump because he's just the mouthpiece. He doesn't fucking understand how any of this works. Yeah, I know. He talked about tariffs in the 80s. It's still something he heard. Okay? It's not real. So I'm not making this up. I'm listening to the economists who do this every day. And I'm watching Bloomberg because even the capitalists are saying what they think, and I want to hear it. What we are witnessing is not just Trump collapsing the economy and global markets, but also a massive theft and fraud at a colossal scale. Yeah, he's just the mouthpiece for this. He can't even make sense of it. He just says the sound bites that somebody planted in his brain. He probably has a Neuralink. What do you want to bet? He stepped up to Elmo in the beginning and said, I'll take the chip. Is that going to make me smarter? So, I'm sorry. He's not a mastermind. He's not any of it. Listen to the admin. Listen to Scott Bessent. Listen to Howard Nutlicker. They're telling you what is happening. If you listen to the words that they say, they're telling you what the chaos is behind the scenes. They can't even get their stories straight. And Scott Bessent, less than a year ago, I think, is on tape as saying tariffs are a terrible idea. Oh, and here's the other thing. You want to know why the penguin, Seal Island is on the tariff list? So that we would talk about it. It wasn't a mistake. They did it on fucking purpose. So that the media, which they did so beautifully, took that as one of the highlights of this tariff rollout. When the real damage was, I think we watched this morning when they calculated the newest China tariffs, and it's up to 79% tariff with what's been added today. Do you understand how much stuff we get from China? And do you know why? It's because they have slave labor. So maybe this is a lesson for us not to, appreciate fast fashion, but at the same time, when you're in a lower economic bracket or you're struggling, you need those available items. You need items to be reasonably priced. But that is a monumental task. Monumental. Oh, thanks, Teresa. I just put out the video right now, right before this broadcast. I put out the video about the comparison between the Joe Rogan piece on me and the real interview with the Joe Rogan guy. So there's a side by side basically of what the Joe Rogan thought he saw versus what actually that conversation was. So that's on my YouTube as my latest video. I think it's called Editing Truth or something like that, because they edit it so that it serves their purpose. He couldn't even edit it in such a way that would serve his purpose totally with me because I wasn't answering the way he wanted me to. But in this video, you get to see how silent that incel was the whole time because he's got one fucking question he's got to get in. He's got to get a good soundbite so that Joe will use it on his shorts. Well, you messed up, bitch. Oh, thanks, Jane. You're sweet. I just am like, I'm angry, obviously, and I'm a little screechy, and I get it. And I'll calm down again. But I don't like being played, right? I don't fucking like this. These guys come out there and they trick these people into saying shit. I'm telling you right now. Oh man, but whatever. It's edited truth. Yeah, that's what thank you, Tom. I forgot what I called it. Anyway, we're waiting for this rules committee hearing because they're going to talk about the SAVE Act, but they haven't started yet, so we'll just talk while they wait. Mm-hmm. Make sure I'm not totally fucked up on it though. No, they're probably doing something like waiting for Netanyahu. All right, I'm going to listen to a little bit more of this.
Would be willing to do what I'm doing or to even go through it.
I don't want to think about Joe Rogan's shorts.
Because I see a beautiful picture at the end. But we are making tremendous
This is all
progress
old, by the way.
a lot of countries, and the countries that really took advantage of us are now saying, please negotiate.
Sure
You know
they
why?
are.
Because
Which
they're
ones?
getting
Thank you,
beaten
Oren.
badly because of what's
Thank
happening.
you.
They're getting beaten badly.
Thank
They're
you,
being
Tom.
devalued as countries. But it's the only chance
Look
we're
at
going to
little
have
tiny
to
Diet
reset
Coke.
the table on trade. And when we do, we're going to come out
I felt like soda
unbelievably
today.
well.
I
We're
was
going to have a
kinda
strong
sad.
country economically again. And we're going to have those
Sometimes.
factories that are empty all over the
What
United
are we doing
States.
this twice baked
We've lost
afternoon? I was just trying to teach my
90,000
dog how to
plants
run
and
beside my
factories.
bike. Hell yeah.
Think of this. 90,000.
Thank God you didn't
wouldn't think
wipe
it's
out.
possible. 90,000 plants
Well-
and factories since NAFTA, which was by
Right now we're just watching a bloated orange flesh bag talk about something, which I'll put off because basically people don't want to do that. Actually, you know what? I have other things I could show you while we're but what we're really waiting for is this Rules Committee hearing, because they're going to talk about the SAVE Act, which the way I characterize the SAVE Act is that when Meemaw goes to vote for Dump again for the third time, when Meemaw goes, the poll workers are going to ask her for her birth certificate or her passport to prove that Meemaw is a citizen. So, interestingly, I predict this SAVE Act is going to backfire bigly on the MAGA crowd, because I don't think a lot of them, at least the ones I know, they certainly don't have a passport. And I don't know if these meth addicts all know where their birth certificates are, but maybe they do. Just kidding. They're all not meth addicts. Off topic, Blondie drummer Clem Burke dead at 70. No! Oh, R.I.P. He was such a good drummer. Oh, you predict Adam and the Ants? Adam and the Ants. That's terrible. Oh, R.I.P. Gosh. I started with both dogs, which was okay. One is lazy and runs behind. The other is full of energy and basically pulled me the whole way. That's so cute. Then I took them one at a time. Good idea. Oh, two would be. Oh, that would be a lot. And a bike. Woo. Recipe for disaster. And if Mama was married and her last name is different than what's on her birth certificate, she won't be able to vote unless she has a passport. That's right. Here we go. Let me show you, actually. Thank you for bringing that up. Because I can tell you that I clipped some, or I didn't clip it, but I found a little soundbite about that. So I will find it and I will play it for you. La 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 la. Oh, the other thing. Wait, I gotta play. No, I won't play this. Okay, I don't know. Wait, who's this guy? Safeguard management. What do the opponents say? I'm going to go ahead and play this one. I'm going to say I don't know these ladies, so I'm a little scared to play them. Does anybody know Bill Track 50? I'm not really sure. What is the SAVE Act? What does it propose? How does it differ from what we already have? What is the reasoning? Let's see if these guys are this is about 8 minutes, so let's see if they have any wisdom for us.
SAVE Act a superhero saving our elections or a villain making it harder to vote? Let's unravel this mystery.
Good music.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Bill Number. Today, in the second part of our double header on non-citizen voting, we're diving into the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the SAVE Act. If you haven't already, make sure to check out last week's episode looking at voting rights in DC. Stephen, ready to get into it?
Absolutely, Sarah. Let's save democracy one podcast episode at a time.
Cute.
We're talking about the SAVE Act. So what exactly does the bill propose?
The SAVE Act amends the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 to essentially require proof of U.S. citizenship for voter registration in federal elections. So whenever you're registering to vote, you need to be able to prove that you are a U.S. citizen. It specifies that the acceptable forms of proof are real ID, like we have implemented all over the US in the last few years. So those IDs have either a star on them, but there's a way that you can tell that each person's ID is a real ID, or a US passport, or a birth certificate. And states will have to set up programs to verify citizenship, but the federal agencies will help out under the bill. There's also criminal penalties for election officials
the Maryland man in El
who
Salvador.
register people who are found to have not been U.S. citizens or given, bad data to the people and they get registered.
I mean, it seems pretty strict, but as I understand it, there are already lots and lots of states that have voter ID laws. So how is this any different?
Well, yep. 36 states already have voter ID laws, but the SAVE Act ups the ante by requiring proof of citizenship at registration, not just at the polls. And this is a big deal because only about 48% of US citizens have a passport, and few people have their birth certificates handy. I'm pretty sure my birth certificate is at my mom's house. I don't know where it is. And driver's license and tribal IDs, which are common IDs, don't typically provide your citizenship status.
Got it. So, I mean, it
Fucking
sounds like it'd be a
assholes.
real hurdle for people to get over to actually register to vote, never mind actually going to the polls. So what's the reasoning behind the bill then? I think it's Republican Chip Roy, great name. Chip Roy,
it's not
feels
a great
necessary.
name.
Yes. Rep. Chip Roy and some other supporters argue that secure elections are crucial for a representative government. And so they believe that the current laws aren't enough to prevent non-citizens from voting, particularly with what they see as the open border policies and attack on election integrity laws that we've been seeing a lot over, especially the last 4 years, but even before that. And they claim that non-citizens voting is a really real issue, present, happening. And despite the existing laws in these 36 states and just kind of the general taste for voting of people who are non-citizens, or what they're particularly concerned about, undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, so last week when we were talking about DC, we were talking about the fact that there are very, very strict laws against non-citizens voting in federal elections with very strict penalties, big fines, prison sentences, that kind of thing. And also any immigrants who try and vote are deported, basically. So whatever their basis for being in the country is, it's revoked and they're actually sent back. So with those kinds of penalties, it does seem strange that you would feel the need to actually introduce more laws to sort of prove these things.
Right.
So what do the opponents
What could
of the
it be
bill say?
about?
Yeah, so opponents, including House Minority Whip Catherine Clark, argue that there's no real evidence of this widespread voter fraud by non-citizens. States like North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona have all audited their rolls and found very few cases of non-citizens voting. The executive office of President Biden has also stated that this bill would make it harder for eligible
this was 7
Americans
months
to
ago, by
register
the
to
way.
vote and could lead to more eligible citizens being purged from the voter rolls, which again is, taking away the representation of people that this bill claims to be wanting to put forth. And when we look at the types of IDs that we have here, what's more common, and if it has their citizenship status on it, that's not the case. And the answer to it is not to have a citizenship marker on your driver's license, because we can all think of how that can, possibly unravel with the current state of things here.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it seems reasonable to claim that if you make it harder to register, then you're going to end up disenfranchising eligible voters and so on. So are there any real world examples there? Is there any sort of data or evidence to back that up?
Yes, actually. Texas is a cautionary tale of what this could look like if it was put into practice. So in 2019, the Texas Secretary of State flagged 95,000 registered voters as potential non-citizens. And this led to lawsuits and the eventual resignation of the Secretary of State, because it turned out that many of these who were flagged were actually legitimate citizens. And it was kind of done carte blanche, and it became a huge issue. There was, talks of deporting people and all of this stuff. And it was actually like a pretty ginormous nightmare for the state.
Oops. That does seem quite messy, but I think it is a salutary lesson for other states, really, that it's often quite hard to establish non-citizens who is a citizen and who isn't, really. But obviously you could use that on the other side to say, well, if it's so difficult to establish, then maybe there's a lot more of it going on than we know about, really. So where does the SAVE Act stand now?
So the SAVE Act passed the House in July, on July 10th, actually, with 221 votes to 198. Interestingly, 5 Democrats actually joined the Republicans to pass the bill, so a little bipartisan representation there. But it's pretty unlikely that it will advance the Democrat-controlled Senate, and President Biden has...
This broadcast was put out 7 months ago, so forgive me for not disclosing that earlier. But yeah, this is old, but it's a good backgrounder, I think, on the SAVE.
already vowed to veto the bill if it reaches his desk.
Well, sounds like it'll be a major talking point in the upcoming election then.
Definitely. The debate over election integrity versus voting rights isn't going away anytime soon. We'll see this bill featured in ads and political messaging, with Republicans arguing that the Democrats who oppose the bill want to let illegal immigrants vote, and Democrats saying that the bill is merely intended to suppress their vote and cast doubt on the legitimacy of the election process.
That's right.
And like you were talking about before, when we see bills like this come up, it is often a side effect of the bill, whether it is the intention or not, that minority groups and people with less resources are the ones who are disenfranchised because they can't get the IDs
And
that are
a
required.
lot of
they
Republican
can't take the time
voters.
off required to get the IDs. They can't pay for
Okay.
it. Their work makes it hard for them to be able to go and
right.
do whatever process needs to be done.
That's real.
And so this is
That's
something
real.
that we see as a very common side effect
There's
to
a lot of jobs
legislation
where
like
people
this,
cannot
whether
leave.
it's the intent, because these types of groups often do vote Democrat, or just, a happy coincidence, possibly. It's an interesting question to propose.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tightrope, isn't it? Because on the one side, you have to protect your elections. It's super important that people have faith in elections. You can see what happens in other countries where people don't trust the electoral process. But on the other hand,
here it is.
You can't put barriers
There's
in people's way, and
the
turnout
thing,
in elections is already really, really low. I mean,
I'll
depressingly
read
low
that.
in a lot of cases. And so you need to make it as easy as possible for people to vote. So
it's just a
you
one
really do need
page.
to balance those two things.
Fucking hell.
Well, thanks very much for the deep dive, Sarah. And
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, whoever your other person name is. You guys are really great, and I'm going to give it a like. And I'm going to subscribe. You guys are pretty cool. Okay, so that's the SAVE Act. Let me show you what Gal is dropping knowledge right and left. Breaking. Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily lifts order requiring Trump administration to undeport Dilmar Abrego Garcia from a prison in El Salvador by midnight tonight. Freeze as SCOTUS mulls the stay request. This is absolute fucking bullshit. Can I just say that? All right, let's see here. The page is not really all that great. Okay, so let me go to. Nope. Oh wait. Oh, I see. There's my other thing. Okay, sorry about that. Hold on. Okay. Here's the New York Times story on it. The government said Judge Paula Zenas, who ordered the administration return the migrant Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia by Monday, had engaged in district court diplomacy, quote unquote. Here we go. Chief Justice John Roberts Jr. on Monday temporarily blocked a trial judge order directing the United States to return a Salvadoran migrant. It had a person here who lives here. A U.S. resident, a person existing, it had inadvertently deported. The Chief Justice, acting on his own, issued an administrative stay, an interim measure meant to give the justices some breathing room while the full court considers the matter. He ordered the migrants' lawyers to file their brief on Tuesday. The order came just hours after the administration asked the court to block the trial judge's order by directing the United States to return the migrant by 11:59 p.m. on Monday. Judge Paula Zenas of the Federal District Court in Maryland had said that the administration committed a grievous error that shocks the conscience by sending the migrant, Gilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, to a notorious prison last month. God knows what condition this man is in. In the administration's emergency application, John Sawyer, the fucking asshole, the U.S. Solicitor General, unbelievable, really, right? Unbelievable, said Judge Zenas had exceeded her authority by engaging in a district court diplomacy because it would require working with the government of El Salvador to secure his release. If this precedent stands, he wrote, other district courts could order the United States to successfully negotiate the return of other removed aliens anywhere in the world by close of business. That is so fucking not true. Under that logic, district courts would effectively have extraterritorial jurisdiction over the United States' diplomatic relations with the whole world. Well, I mean, if you let cats drive, dogs are going to want to drive. While the United States concedes that removal to El Salvador was an administrative error, we still want to keep him there? Wouldn't you want to do everything to bring him back? If you knew that you made an error, wouldn't you be doing everything in your power to bring him back? Wow. Talk about saying the quiet part out loud. Hi, Val. Especially if his captors know there's a court case. Butterflies. While the United States concedes that removal to El Salvador was... Wait, no, we're going to give him the treatment.
Well, the United States concedes that removal to El Salvador was a big boo-boo. I mean, someone just made a boo-boo. Okay, don't get all excited. Okay, somebody made a boo-boo. Mr. Sarah wrote, that does not license district court judges to seize control over foreign relations. Like, they can't just go call El Salvador and say, hey, send him back. That doesn't, no. Treat the executive branch as a subordinate diplomat. I'm going to tell you what to do. And demand that the United States let a member of a foreign terrorist organization in the...
He's lying. He's lying. He just admitted that he lied in the fucking same statement. Apparently, Roberts did it on his own, Butterflies. You're right. The administration contends that Mr. Abrego Garcia, 29 years old, is a member of a violent transnational street gang, MS-13, or game, which officials recently designated as a terrorist organization. Judge Zinis, who was appointed by Barack Obama, said those claims were being based on, quote, a singular unsubstantiated allegation. The, quote, evidence, this is her quote, against Abrego Garcia consisted of nothing more than his Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie, and a vague, uncorroborated allegation from a confidential informant claiming he belonged to MS-13's Western Clique in New York, a place he has never lived. Just before the Justice Department asked the Supreme Court to weigh in, a 3-judge panel of the U.S. Appeals Court for the Fourth Circuit unanimously rejected the department's attempt to pause Judge Zinis's ruling. So even the U.S. Court of Appeals had already rejected the department's attempt to pause. And John Roberts thought, no, wait, hold my beer. I want to simp a little harder. In a sharply worded letter, 2 judges likened Mr. Abrego Garcia's inadvertent deportation to an act of official kidnapping. The United States government has no legal authority to snatch a person who is lawfully present in the United States off the street and remove him from the country without due process, wrote Judge Stephanie Thacker, who was appointed by Mr. Obama. The government's contention otherwise and its argument that the federal courts are powerless to intervene are unconscionable. That's right. It's unconscionable. And you know what? It doesn't really matter who's been appointed to what, because I've seen time after time Trump appointed judge, Bush appointed judge give the finger to this administration. So it doesn't fucking matter who appointed the judge. If it does, usually that comes out in some kind of ethics thing, because people will call bullshit before this point in time if a judge is really fucked up, especially I would think at the district court level. In the list of things that never happen, only the conscienceless can accomplish the unconscionable. That's a good way to say it. No, don't do that to me. Not having a good speaking morning day. It's 1:30. Holy shit. Okay. I guess they're not going to have this fucking thing. What's wrong with you guys? What's wrong? Are you guys like lazy that you just don't want to go? You don't want to do your work? Okay. Maybe they're all like rebalancing their portfolio. Okay, we read that. All right. Let me see. There's that. Oh wait, I read that. Wait, no, I didn't read this. Oh, this was the asking to block the judge. The Trump administration is asking. An emergency appeal filed Monday morning, Solicitor General John Sauer. Wow, there's a special place in hell for you, John Sauer. Let me tell you. Let me fucking tell you. Let me find, I have a couple of videos. Hey, Paul J. Yeah, Fox Delta Tango. Hell yeah. We the people will have to take it all back. I know. Here's the thing, Carrie, and I'm not very good at this. I'm really not. I don't see how this, like usually this stuff like all happens not with such discord. So I'm kind of curious to see, I'm really curious about this whole economics thing. And the reason I am isn't because I like economics. I fucking hate capitalism. I really do. I know I've participated in it and I continue to participate in it. So I am guilty. But I actually detest the whole concept of capitalism and free market shit. I want people to have a good life, and I want everyone to be able to live and get what they need, including healthcare and housing, stuff like that. So anyway, but for some reason these guys are like hell-bent, like this is a fucking self-inflicted wound. That's the part that gets me so deeply. Is that all of this is a self-inflicted wound. All the harm to the economy, all the harm to any shred of credibility that we had as a country for a protector of human rights. And I know we're problematic. Oh boy. We are not, we're kind of like, we're not without sin. Remember that old joke? Jesus is doing that speech and he says, those without sin cast the first stone. And from behind the crowd, a stone comes flying and smacks him in the face. And he says, not funny, Mom. My mother, who was really pretty devout Catholic, except for the fact that she didn't like, she was pro-gay marriage and pro-abortion choice. But other than that, she was actually a real, like, serious, like, she fucking believed in the, like, evolution type stuff. It was weird. I don't know. She was a nurse, too. Really strange woman, but I absolutely loved her, and she was definitely part of why I am. The stone hits the woman accused of adultery, but it doesn't in the joke. Stone hits Jesus, and he's like, thanks, or he's like, not funny, Mom. Okay, get it? Because his mom is without sin. Don't you get it? Oh my God. I tell that joke terrible. Isn't it great? Come to my show. Come to my show. I'm so great. Yay, peace, love. You're home safe. Yay. All right, let me see what is going on because I had some clippy clips. I guess I don't know if this thing's happening or not. What the hell's wrong with these people? Oh wait, I wanted to play this one. This is about Fruit Loops. Okay, this is about Fruit Loops. And let me take her over here. Give her a big screen. This is about Fruit Loops, because you know how I feel about the fact that we're going to have to institute a whole bunch of regulations in order to have a safe food supply. Yeah, hell's going to be busy. I would support a hell if I knew it was going to take on these people. All right, here we go. Texas investigating cereal giant Kellogg over food dye used. What? What? Texas? You're getting into the regulatory business? Here we go.
Is what you're pouring into your kids' cereal bowl as healthy as the box claims, or
Is
your
it?
bowl for that matter? Texas now investigating cereal giant Kellogg's for possibly violating the state's consumer protection laws, saying that many of the cereals it promotes as healthy may actually lead to obesity, cancer, attention difficulties, and other issues too. Mills is here with what we need to know. So Mills, this case is at the center of Trump's Make America Healthy Again agenda too, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We saw a protest about this actually back in October. So Texas Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton, He's taking issue with Kellogg's labeling their products as healthy, despite some cereals like Apple Jacks and Frosted Flakes containing petroleum-based artificial food colorings. And Texas is just the latest state to call out Kellogg's when it comes to using artificial food dyes in their products. California banned Kellogg's Fruit Loops from schools over concerns about the artificial dyes. And the investigation alleges that Kellogg's broke the law, quote, after, quote, falsely claiming to remove artificial food dyes. It went on to state that some cereals have petroleum-based artificial food colorings, which Paxton claims are linked to hyperactivity, obesity, and autoimmune disease. What's more, Kellogg sells versions of these cereals without those unhealthy ingredients in Canada and across Europe. In 2015, Kellogg's reportedly announced that they were working to take artificial flavors and colors out of their cereals by 2018. Yet cereals like Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks still have red 40, yellow 5, blue 1, and yellow 6, all of which are produced from petroleum.
The state of Texas is asking, why did you promise your shareholders that you were going to take out the artificial colors and flavors? Because, of course, you knew that they're not safe. Isn't it? And then you reneged on that promise. And the CEO's last statement to his shareholders was, that's because our products are healthy. And that can't be the answer. It can't be that since 2015, we've learned that red 40 is actually
Wait till they learn what petroleum products come from.
That's why we're not selling it in products abroad.
Oh.
And opinions are mixed on if artificial
food dyes and
additives are linked to health issues.
Should I eat petroleum products?
They are, yet the FDA has deemed many safe. Kellogg's ingredients include food dyes. Those are approved and compliant with FDA regulations.
So what's the problem?
Confectioners Association
what is the problem?
Changing some regulations could actually
Why is everyone so excited?
Anna?
And other foods have similar health claims too. It's not just cereals. We're talking
wait
about,
for wait till we come for the cottage
breads,
cheese.
It's all sorts of things. Mills, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mills. And ease up on the eyeliner because your eyes are big enough anyway. Okay, there's another one. Wow, this thing is just not going to start. Let me see. Let me get this other one. Oh my God. So that's the thing I've been saying is you're telling me that this administration, who does not want regulations on anything so that businesses can make money unfettered by regulation, you're telling me that their battle, the fight they're going to pick is on food coloring dyes, and that is going to be Maha. And you know what's going to end up happening? They're going to start selling the Canadian Fruit Loops down here, and people are going to revolt. Do you remember Coke and Classic Coke? People were obsessed. So get ready, kids, because it's Battle of the Fruit Loop. I'm predicting it now. I'm calling it now. Yeah, but pay no attention to the air, the water, any climate change. Anybody asked for FEMA lately? We have any FEMA requesters in the audience? No? Anybody? You guys got this? You're good? Okay. It is frustrating. It's frustrating. Oh, peace, love, you're fine. I can always catch up with you. All right, let me see what else, because I had a couple things, and then I don't know if they're not going to do this thing or what the deal is. Okay, so this I thought was interesting. This is a Times Radio piece from yesterday, and it's talking, the title of the video, here, I'll show it, is New Trading Bloc Will Enrage Trump and Split Republican Party. And I haven't watched it yet, but I wanted to watch it. The Fruit Loop battle will be where what you eat is choice. Oh, Max, I predict real big problems, okay? Between Mima having to find her fucking birth certificate to vote, she's not going to go, to the Fruit Loop, to the fucking up Social Security payments somehow, to the causing Medicare to collapse, deauthorizing the Affordable Care Act. They're gonna kill us, okay? They're gonna kill us. I guess the Fruit Loops canceled their hearing. hearing canceled due to food dye crisis. Well, let's go back to economics for a minute. Sorry to whiplash you. But this is the Times Radio reporting. Is Kellogg still in Illinois? I thought they were in Michigan. Am I wrong about that? I thought they were in Michigan. Right? Don't they have a big like thing there? I know. We've got lots of Michigan represented here, so I'm going to invest in Fruit Loops. I might name the GOP the Fruit Loops. Oh my God, SB, that's perfect. Well done. It's yours. Here we go.
He used to be the governor of the Bank of England, now Prime Minister of Canada, and everyone thinks he might win and be reconfirmed
I think he
as
will.
Prime
He
Minister
sounded
of
great.
Canada on the elections there on April the 28th.
He sounded really
made his position
good.
clear. He wants a really kind of deep trade deal with the European Union. I mean, de facto membership of the customs union in the single market. And the British government would like to kind of come in on the coattails of that and then extend the invitation to other countries. I mean, I think Australians would be keen to join in.
This is why
so New Zealand.
it's not going to
one
work.
or two countries in the other countries in the British Commonwealth need to join in, and the Japanese too. So you could see kind of the emergence.
Wait till
of
Modi
a kind of
gets
rules-based kind of trading area that actually isn't globalization, but is certainly keeping the corridors of trade open. And I don't think the Americans would like that at all. I think the Republican Party could split over it.
Of course, it's important to say that whilst this conversation is happening today, the government is currently seeking trade deals with India and Australia and continuing to work closely with the European Union. So what exactly does this globalisation has failed mean? And as Starmer looks to boost growth in the UK,
Oh, that
what are
must
the
be the
options
UK.
on the
Reference
table?
to the
Well,
UK.
joining us now with his thoughts is Will Hutton, political economist, columnist, and president of the Academy of Social Sciences. Will, welcome to the show. Thanks for giving us your time.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
What do you make of that statement, and how surprising is it to hear it coming out of the lips of a
We're going to go to that
Labour
next,
Prime
Gal.
Minister?
Well, I think there's a lot of globalization kind of leading up to the financial crisis style is plainly kind of gone. But the advantages of having an open trading system, a rules-based trading system, are there for all to see. I mean, trade has been the handmaid of economic growth since the beginning of time, and it's still true today. And my belief is that actually, yes, the government is saying that kind of globalization, which very much benefited America, by the way, is kind of the curtain's come down on it, but the curtain has not come down on trying to retain a rules-based trading system. I mean, the nations of the world have got to be able to buy and sell. The supply chains between them have got to remain open. I mean, we need the opportunity of selling our cars, our services to other countries like they need to sell to us. And if that stops or gets seriously kind of frozen, which is maybe the most likely outcome, that's really going to hurt everything. And so I think one has to kind of choose one's words with extreme care. The kind of turbocharged, kind of finance-driven investment banks opening up everywhere, all of that has plainly gone down the tubes.
Ooh, I haven't looked at venture capital.
What I think, what I know actually,
ooh, that's a good one.
is that Macron, Merz in Germany, Starmer, Mark Carney, the Australians, and even the Japanese are in urgent conversations about how to kind of rescue something from the wreckage and keep their markets open. So I think it's the kind of fight's on, and it's going to be very intriguing. And indeed, just to say this, I mean, Mark Carney, who used to be the governor of the Bank of England, now Prime Minister of Canada, and everyone thinks he might win and be reconfirmed as Prime Minister of Canada on the elections there on April the 28th. And he's made his position clear. He wants a really kind of deep trade deal with the European Union. I mean, de facto membership of the customs union in the single market. And the British government would like to kind of come in on the coattails of that and then extend the invitation to other countries. I mean, I think Australians would be keen to join in. So New Zealand. You might even find one or two countries in the other countries in the British Commonwealth need to join in, and the Japanese too.
No, they're
so
not.
you could see kind of the emergence of a kind of rules-based kind of trading area
This admin is living
that
up their
actually
ass.
isn't globalization, but it's certainly keeping
wonder
the
what
trade,
Teal thinks
the
right
corridors
now,
of trade open. And I don't think the Americans would like that at all. I think the Republican Party would split over it. They would say, "Why have we set this up?" And it could be very difficult too for at home here for Brexiters like Nigel Farage. I mean, are you against Nigel? Kind of joining the Canadians and the Australians and the Nigerians and the Indians in a trade association with the European Union, form a trade bloc to keep trade going. Are you against that? Do you want to make common cause with Trump's America? I think the politics of this could get as interesting as the economics.
Well, do you think that is the biggest decision this government now has to face? There's been a lot of calls of saying, well, look, actually, the UK should use the advantage, as some see it, of being outside the EU to be nimble and to try and negotiate a better tariffs deal with the US to go after that all elusive and nebulous US-UK trade deal. Is that going to be the tough choice that Keir Starmer and his government have to make? Is it getting closer to the US or getting closer to the EU, as you described it?
There's no choice. I mean, I think it's very clear. The algebra behind those tariffs made it clear that the way President Trump and his kind of troop of sycophants, frankly, in the White House think. I mean, for Trump, trade is not about. There's no possibility that there's win-win outcomes in trade. Economists, and I lean to the left. You'll talk to other people who lean to the right. But one thing unites all economists is that that trade is growth inducing. It's just, it's economics 101. That's not believed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump thinks that he's an old fashioned mercantilist. He believes that, you trade to get lots of gold bullion. This is what we thought before kind of modern times. And he thinks that if the only way a country gets a trade surplus is if it's bullied someone into submission, that if a country runs a trade surplus with the United States, it must have racketeered, bullied, plundered, pillaged. It's not because American consumers find it advantageous to buy the goods from that country and advantageous for the Americans to sell goods and services back to the rest of the world. He doesn't think like that. So any deal with America on the table is going to be one which is going to be on his terms. And he's going to want to trumpet it as, look, my supporters, UK has given us this deal. We're going to get all our chlorinated chicken into the United Kingdom. We're going to have no tax on our digital companies trading there. They're going to accept our rules and regulations. They've even conceding that they may abandon having value-added tax. I mean, to have a deal like that is no deal at all.
That's it.
And actually, I think it would I think it would go down terribly here in the UK. And I think
they've got the ability to trade with other countries.
I don't think that. Bridget Phillipson has already said that there's no way that there's going to be online safety is going to be compromised by a trade.
Right.
And that's just what the Americans are pushing for. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think the choice, as you've described, kind of there.
Yeah, and Darren Jones this morning has been categorical where it comes to things like chlorinated chicken, there's a red line for the UK government, and we know that US trade deal is heavily going to be based on agriculture, on food goods and pharmaceuticals for the NHS. So it makes that deal look very tricky.
You can't get a trade deal through Congress. Given the geography of America, it has to have a 2/3 majority in both the Senate and the House. And to do that requires all those congressmen and women from the Midwest to vote for it. And they simply won't vote for it unless there's an advantageous deal on agriculture. So, it's not... We have to do deals with Canada. We have to do deals with the European Union. And it's much better for that to be comprehensive rather than a series of side deals.
Sure. Well, just before we go, I wanted to get your thoughts. We were debating earlier whether the UK needs to start thinking seriously of having closer ties with China. You haven't mentioned China in this sort of trade pact that is going to get closer to the EU. What are your thoughts? Do we need to get closer to China since those tariff announcements from the White House?
I do, but I have to tread carefully. That's why I'm so keen on the notion. Canada is both a member of the Commonwealth and wants to associate with the European Union. And that is a kind of bridgehead for Britain to work with Canada to open that possibility up. And then, having done that, to make the same kind of terms available to other Commonwealth countries. Australia and New Zealand will bite our hand off to do it. I have no doubt.
Really?
I suspect South Africa would as well. And then India might want to have a kind of special deal, and Japan and South Korea would also. And once you've got that in place, you then start talking to China. But it's something comprehensive that the kind of, and that you're then talking, if those countries I've just mentioned got their act together, the Commonwealth, Japan, and the European Union, you are talking about close to certainly more than 40%, maybe close to 45% of world GDP. And then you turn to China and say, this is what we're doing. We're going to be, we don't want you dumping products on us. We're going to have special safeguards. But if you want to play ball with this new trade order we're creating, you're welcome. I would also say the same to the United States, by the way. They'll have to drop all their wretched tariffs.
There
so you see where I'm going with this? I mean, I think,
turn the tables.
And I happen to know that actually Mark Carney and Keir Starmer and Macron and Friedrich Merz are all thinking in these terms.
Okay.
So this might not be so stupid as you think.
I don't think it sounds stupid at all. Will, thank you so much for giving us all this time. Really fascinating to speak to you. Will Hutton there, political economist, columnist, and president of the Academy of Social Sciences.
Wow, that was great. Thank you, Times Radio. All right, I'm just going to check on our Rules Committee, which is doing absolutely nothing, but we're going to go to the hearing that actually I did have on the list. This is a bicameral hearing.
Because Donald Trump wanted something.
Hold on. Let's get a little going here. Let's do a little. Let's just start at the beginning, and we'll go through it. Get to the beginning. All right. Oh, wow. It's really. Okay, I'm going to do them at a little bit of a speed. We'll do them at 1.5.
I call this hearing to order. This week, an immigration attorney at the Department of Justice told a federal court that he would implore his department to seek to return a man wrongfully deported to a maximum security prison in El Salvador, a man who had been deported in violation of a judge's order. And the department's response to this gross miscarriage of justice was not to accept responsibility or to take urgent action to correct the problem and seek the man's return. No, the department's response was to punish the department's own lawyer for speaking truthfully to the court, for what it deemed an act of insubordination, for failure to give full-throated defense to the department's illegal act. This is why we are here today. We are here today because the rule of law and democracy in the United States is under attack, not by a foreign adversary or some distant threat. The rule of law is being attacked and subverted from within, from an administration intoxicated by its own power and enabled by a supine Congress. Donald Trump is taking unprecedented steps to bend our justice system to his will, and his administration is moving systematically and swiftly to dismantle the legal pillars that hold up our democracy. The independence of the legal system, the idea of impartial justice, the right to counsel, and the principle that no one, not even a president, is above the law. If Donald Trump and his personal criminal defense lawyers now running the Justice Department succeed, the consequences will be profound. The impact will be felt by Americans from all walks of life and by future generations. This is why Ranking Member Raskin and I have taken the extraordinary step of convening this unprecedented hearing. We brought together both chambers of Congress, the Senate and the House, to conduct real oversight and to serve as a check and balance, to hold those who misuse power to account and to carry out our constitutional duty. Convening this hearing was not our first choice. We have tried to get our Republican colleagues to hold hearings, to do meaningful oversight, to assert Congress's authority as an independent branch of government. But to our great disappointment, our Republican colleagues have abdicated that important responsibility. They have stood by as the president has run roughshod over the legislative branch and turned Congress into little more than a rubber stamp. So today we'll hold the first of what we hope will be more bicameral oversight hearings. We will do the investigative work that our colleagues across the aisle refuse to do. We will expose the illegality, abuse, and corruption of this administration and within the Department of Justice. We will have brave witnesses speak to what's actually happening behind closed doors, how the Trump administration continues to try to intimidate them from speaking out, and why it matters to Americans across the country. The Trump administration is following a well-worn playbook. History serves as a guide and as a warning. In the 1930s, a Jewish lawyer in Berlin tracked in meticulous detail how Germany gradually became what he called a dual state. First, to keep the country running, the ordinary legal system remained in place for most people. And yet, step by step, a parallel system of governance and law emerged, what one scholar called a lawless zone. A parallel system carry out the will of the leader and to go after his enemies, real or perceived, to punish, to reward, to co-opt, to intimidate, silence, or take over institutions that make a society free and vibrant, the courts, the lawyers, the universities, the press, even businesses. And over time, the emerging authoritarianism would swallow what remained of the rule of law. And now Hungary provides a more present-day warning. Methodically, Viktor Orban has tried to dismantle the independence of Hungary's judicial system, its education system, and free press, undermining democracy while pretending to uphold the law. And we have our own history that we must not forget. In the 1950s, in this very institution, Senator Joseph McCarthy and his enablers wielded the power of the government to go after perceived enemies. Many, shamefully, did not stand up at the time. Some chose expediency, political gain, or profit. Others thought they could weather the storm by cutting deals or staying silent. If this sounds all too eerily familiar, it is because it is. But there is a silver lining and a reason for hope. Those who defended fellow Americans then are now rightfully viewed as vindicated by history. The courage demonstrated by Americans in decades past and by brave men and women in other countries should serve as our inspiration and a roadmap for standing up for the rule of law, for each other, and for our democracy. Today's hearing, therefore, is a step towards real oversight and accountability.
This may preempt the space later on. I'll see. My energy level is not great today.
After witnessing, as we all have, the corrupt use of the Department of Justice's prosecutorial power by striking an illicit bargain with the mayor of New York to do the administration's bidding. These witnesses refuse to enable a two-tier system of justice that grants favors and cuts corners for the famous or wealthy. And as we'll hear today, they bravely stood up to ongoing efforts by the Department of Justice to intimidate them from speaking today, including when they planned to send armed marshals to the home of one of our witnesses, Liz Oyer, in order to discourage her from testifying today. These witnesses, like Stacey Young, are supporting others who continue to serve the public interest, continue to be employed by the Department of Justice, and who cannot speak for themselves. One of our witnesses, Rachel Cohen, stood up when her law firm would not, even as other law firms beat a path to the White House to capitulate to the extortionary campaign of the executive branch, even as that campaign weakens the right to counsel, the right of free speech, and the right to take on unpopular causes. Today's witnesses represent the antidote to the collective action problem we have seen when law firms, universities, and other institutions race to the White House to cut their own deals rather than stand on principle. In this defining moment, our institutions must not grovel before power. They must not retreat. They must stand together. They must lead. Law firms, universities, public servants, Congress, each has a unique role, an important role to play, because a democracy that fails to hold power to account ceases to be a democracy at all. Because we cannot allow the law to be twisted into a tool of personal or political vengeance or favor, and we cannot let threats to our democracy go unchallenged. Before we introduce the witnesses, let me turn to my colleagues, Ranking Member Raskin and Ranking Member Durbin, both of whom have demonstrated extraordinary leadership during this moment of profound challenge. I'm grateful that we are convening this hearing together, and I'm grateful for the courage of today's witnesses who have refused to remain silent. I now yield to my colleague, Mr. Raskin, for his opening statement, followed by Mr. Durbin.
Well, thank you, Senator Schiff, for those moving remarks, and thank you, Ranking Member Durbin. Thank you both for working with us to hold this oversight hearing, which Republicans on neither side of the Capitol were willing to call. Special thanks to our witnesses today. Your bravery is inspiring to an anxious nation today. Even in the face of great pressure, each of you has stood tall and held fast to your oath to uphold the Constitution and the integrity of the legal profession. Just as the president has crashed the stock market with his illegal tariffs, he has crashed the justice system with his dreadful appointments and vindictive policies. He's filled the leadership of the Department of Justice with his personal lawyers, unapologetically extremist sycophants like Kash Patel and Ed Martin, who elevate their devotion to Trump over any semblance of fidelity to the Constitution, the rule of law, and the rules of professional responsibility. Our witnesses are people who have refused to bow down and be complicit in the way so many of our colleagues have been complicit. The president fires dozens of DOJ lawyers simply for doing their jobs in prosecuting the January 6th insurrectionists who violently assaulted and wounded more than 140 of our police officers. The Republicans say nothing. The president issues executive orders banning disfavored lawyers and law firms from federal buildings, federal courthouses, federal employment, and federal security clearances unless they offer him blind loyalty and millions of dollars in free pro bono services for his pro-Malum causes. And the Republicans say nothing. Trump sacked 18 inspectors general who saved us $91 billion in actual waste, fraud, and abuse last year. His team gutted the Office of Public Integrity and suspended enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. They withdrew prosecution of New York City Mayor Adams on serious bribery and corruption charges because he formed an alliance with Trump, causing 7 top prosecutors to resign their offices, led by Danielle Sassoon, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, who clerked for Justice Scalia and was an active member of the Federalist Society. Our GOP colleagues are silent about these scandalous offenses. But House Republicans are outspoken about this. Many are calling for impeachment of the judges who've rendered 56 preliminary injunctions or temporary restraining orders against this reign of fear and terror. The president and Elon Musk go online and call them radical left rogue judges. Even Judge Boasberg, a pillar of the bar and chief judge of the D.C. District Court, who was first appointed to the bench by President Bush and was Justice Kavanaugh's roommate at Yale. We have only impeached 15 judges in the entire history of the United States, always for corruption offenses, bribery, tax evasion, habitual drunkenness, not even occasional drunkenness, habitual drunkenness, never for doctrinal disagreement with their rulings, much less when their rulings are manifestly correct. As Chief Justice Roberts put it a few weeks ago, the proper response to a decision you disagree with in the district court is to appeal the decision, not to impeach the judge. They're not making America great again, but they're definitely making the government corrupt again. We're grateful to you, witnesses, for having the courage to speak up against this outrageous corruption of our justice system as it came to affect you. And we're eager to hear your important stories. You will teach America how to stand tall. Ms. Oyer, I understand the Deputy Attorney General tried to send armed marshals to your home at night to deliver a clear message, not to speak to us at today's hearing. And yet, I see you here today undaunted and unbowed, proving to Mr. Blanche and any other Trump official that you can't bully and silence everyone. That kind of courage is contagious, but we must emphasize to a watchful nation that courage is not the opposite of fear. Real courage, in fact, is experiencing all the fear, all the terror of these official threats and harassment, registering the fear of vigilante and online attacks, metabolizing the fear of your own government hounding you, but then pressing on anyway with conviction and passion for what you know to be right and lawful and just. No, courage, which is a virtue, is not the opposite of fear, which is an emotion, and indeed a necessary and adaptive emotion. Courage is a virtue, and it's the opposite of cowardice, which is a vice. The worst cowards are the tyrants and despots themselves who choose to terrify other people because they have allowed their own terrible fears and insecurities to turn them into monstrous, deformed, and cruel people. But the people who enable tyrants and despots, who do their bidding and work their will and flatter them and bow and scrape before them, they are cowards too, undoubtedly, at least if they have any choice in the matter. Every authoritarian regime runs on lies and runs on fear. Every authoritarian regime fears the truth and fears people who act justly and defiantly based on the truth. And that means they fear people like you and what you have to say to your fellow citizens. Thank you for recognizing the fear of this moment, feeling it, and nonetheless deciding to go ahead and act with courage and composure against a tyrant and his accomplices. I yield back to my very good friend, Senator Schiff, and I turn it over to Mr. Durbin for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Congressman Raskin. It's an honor to be here. All across America this last weekend, thousands of people, many whom never participated in a political event, came out to demonstrate their concern about the current state of the American government and what is happening with this administration. There were 1,000 in Springfield, Illinois, some 50,000 in Chicago, Illinois, and that story is repeated over and over again. We are at a unique moment in our history. Presidents have constitutional issues, virtually all do, but few have a constitutional crisis, which we are facing now in this country. I want to thank Congressman Raskin for coming here today along with his colleagues from the House, and thank my colleagues from the Senate. But I want to particularly thank Senator Schiff. He's in a unique position, bridging the experience you had in the House of Representatives with this administration, and now your responsibility here in the United States Senate. I think this may be unique in American history, but it's certainly warranted, and I thank you for your leadership, Senator. In bringing
Isn't
this
it
together.
the shadow cabinet we were hoping for?
What we face today, it is truly a constitutional crisis. How did it start? Well, it certainly started with questioning a legitimate election and the outcome. Stop the Steal movement was an indication of pure effort to stop the Constitution from working its way. But the courts rejected President Trump's efforts to turn the results of the election, and now we see what he does in his second term. First, President Trump has gutted and weaponized the Department of Justice and our federal law enforcement agencies. The Justice Department is supposed to enforce our laws and protect our citizens, but President Trump appointed his personal attorneys to fill numerous senior positions at DOJ, including Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General. As many of us predicted, the new DOJ leadership has treated the Justice Department like the president's personal law firm. From dismissing corruption charges against Mayor of New York in exchange for supporting the president's policies, to restoring gun rights to domestic abusers who supported the president, to threatening universities that don't toe the MAGA line, the Justice Department has abandoned its commitment to the rule of law to advance the personal and political interests of Donald Trump alone. We need to fight back against this
We're in
weaponized
like
justice
5 different
department.
constitutional
That's
crises.
why I led the Judiciary Democrats
Like
in filing a
5
bar complaint against Trump DOJ official Amo Bove for his role in corrupt bargaining with Mayor Adams. That's why I've led the Senate Judiciary Democrats in demanding an explanation from Attorney General Bondi for the firing of the pardon attorney and the restoration, for God's sakes, of Mel Gibson's gun rights. This brings me to the second way in which President Trump has threatened the rule of law, targeting law firms simply because they dared to employ attorneys who were involved in litigation or representations that the president didn't care for. We have long recognized the importance of parties before a court having representation by attorneys of their choosing, even in unpopular and politically charged cases. This goes back to the founding of the Republic. John Adams, our second president and one of the nation's founding fathers, famously represented 9 British soldiers accused of perpetrating the Boston Massacre. The right to counsel is so fundamental that it's enshrined in the Sixth Amendment.
I remember Tiles.
But instead of protecting and defending the Constitution, as he swore to do, President Trump has used his position to settle political scores and target law firms he deems insufficiently loyal. Over the past 2 months, he's issued executive orders and attempted to suspend security clearances, limit access to government buildings, and prohibit government contracts for certain firms. If those orders sound lawless,
What did he
it's because
fire?
they
200,000
are.
workers?
And
Is that
multiple
what
federal
someone
courts
said
have
in the chat
appropriately
this
blocked
morning?
large
Federal
portions of
workers?
those executive
Is that the
orders.
correct number?
The Republicans on the floor and in the committee complain and moan and groan about all of the judicial cases that have been ruling against them, and many have. The fact of the matter is that this president has issued over 100 executive orders, many of which fly directly in the face of clear constitutional law. The president's actions pose an existential threat to the targeted law firms. Some have capitulated. For other firms, even the threat of future executive orders was enough to lead them to preemptively cut deals with the Trump administration. That, of course, is the point. The president wants to intimidate law firms so they'll think twice before taking on a client whose rights have been violated by the administration. That should alarm everyone. This is the kind of thing we expect from tin-pot dictatorships in other parts of the world. But these kinds of attacks on lawyers and the rule of law are unprecedented in the United States of America. They are not normal, and we cannot allow them to continue. I look forward to hearing from the witnesses, and thank you for your courage coming forward today. It's important that we hear this story that each of you has lived. And I want to close by saying to all those who gathered across America and who communicate through social media, asking what Congress is doing to try to stop these excesses and these violations of the Constitution, remember what happens on this day. Because on this day, I think we are making history at the right moment. Thank you, Senator.
Well, what are we going to
Thank
do?
you,
Are we
Ranking
going to
Member
storm the
Durbin.
Capitol?
We'll now introduce the witnesses, and these will be the briefest
Adam
of
Schiff?
introductions, so we can leave more time for testimony
You have
and
your
questions.
baseball
But today
sweater?
we're joined by Liz Oyer, who previously served as the pardon attorney at the Department of Justice. We're also joined by Stacey Young, who previously served as an attorney in the Civil Rights Division.
Look at all the
in the
people
Department
there.
of Justice. We're also joined by Ryan Croswell, who served as a federal prosecutor in the Public Integrity Section of the Department of Justice, and Rachel Cohen, who served as an associate attorney at Skadden, one of the largest law firms in the world. Thank you for being here, and we'll turn over to you for opening statements. Ms. Oyer, why don't you start us off?
Thank you very much. Exactly 1 month ago today.
Can you turn your mic on or bring it close?
Can you hear me now?
A little closer, if you would.
How's that?
Better. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Exactly 1 month ago, I was terminated from my job as the Justice Department's pardon attorney. The pardon attorney is a non-political position that is entrusted with advising the president about the exercise of his constitutional clemency power. When I was fired, there were over 6,000 applications pending from ordinary Americans around the country who were seeking the president's mercy and second chances through clemency. I had planned to talk today about the events leading up to my firing, but some more recent developments have persuaded me to focus my time on the callous cruelty with which DOJ leadership is treating dedicated public servants like myself.
This is important.
For me, this began with my abrupt firing. It was 2:00 on a Friday afternoon. I was in a conference room meeting with colleagues from several different DOJ offices. We were brainstorming about how to implement a priority of the Attorney General. Halfway through the meeting, I was frantically pulled out by my deputy. In the hallway, she broke the news to me that security officers were waiting for me in my office to serve me with termination papers and escort me out of the building. I rushed back to my office. There, I was handed a 3-sentence memo signed by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, firing me effective immediately. I had never met Mr. Blanche, and I received no explanation for his decision. That afternoon, I walked out of the building for the last time carrying a grocery bag filled with my personal effects. I had no time to say goodbye to my team. I was in shock Everyone I passed on the way out was looking on in shock and horror. I want Deputy Attorney General Blanche and Attorney General Bondi to know it is traumatic for everyone in an entire organization to see a beloved colleague and leader treated that way. My heart aches for my colleagues who had to go back into that office on Monday with no explanation from DOJ leadership and no assurances about what the future holds for them. They are good, dedicated people, and they deserve better.
Oh, please share this broadcast. I don't care if you share the
After
original
I was
or
fired,
this.
I chose to speak publicly about the events leading up to
This
my
is
termination.
important.
I felt that it was my obligation to share my concerns about the reckless and unethical use of department resources to accomplish political objectives, including favors for loyalists and friends. Shortly after I did so, Mr. Blanche contacted the media to accuse me of lying. This still puzzles me because his staff has all of the memos and emails that substantiate everything I have ever said. I requested those documents through FOIA, but Mr. Blanche's staff still has not produced them. I have made some other simple requests of the department since my firing. One was for my annual performance evaluations, which show that I received outstanding ratings every year. One was for personnel documents that I would need to file for unemployment. DOJ responded to me that these were complex requests and I could not expect a response in any reasonable period of time. For weeks after my firing, DOJ also refused to provide me with documents about my benefits, including my health insurance and including my retirement plan. Finally, on April 2nd, after my requests got some media attention, I got an email advising me that my health insurance would expire in 5 days. I learned that to extend my coverage, the cost to me and my family would more than quadruple. I was told that to keep my family members covered, I would have to prove my familial relationships with them. I was told that I would need to provide my marriage certificate, the birth certificate of my child, and proof of a common residence or joint tax filings with my spouse. Perhaps the most personally upsetting part of the story is the lengths to which the leadership of the department has gone to prevent me from testifying here today. On Friday night, around 9:15, I learned that the Deputy Attorney General's office had directed the Department of Security and Emergency Planning Service to send 2 armed Special Deputy U.S. Marshals to my home to serve me with a letter. The letter was to be served at my home between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock on Friday night. I was in the car with my husband and my parents, who are sitting behind me today, when I got the news that the officers were on their way to my house where my teenage child was home alone. Fortunately, due to the grace of a very decent person who understood how upsetting this would be to my family, I was able to confirm receipt of the letter to an email address, and the deputies were called off. The letter had been emailed to me just before 8 o'clock that night. At no point did Mr. Blanche's staff pick up the phone and call me before they sent armed deputies to my home. The letter was a warning to me about the risks of testifying here today. But I am here because I will not be bullied into concealing the ongoing corruption and abuse of power at the Department of Justice. DOJ is entrusted with keeping us safe, upholding the rule of law, and protecting our civil rights. It is not a personal favor bank for the president. Its career employees are not the president's personal debt collectors. I see only Democratic members here today,
She is a hero.
but this is not a partisan issue. It should alarm all Americans that the leadership of the Department of Justice appears to value political loyalty above the fair and responsible administration of justice. It should offend all Americans that our leaders are treating public servants with a lack of basic decency and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony and for the courage you're demonstrating by being here. Jamie, did you want to introduce Mr. Croswell?
It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ryan Croswell, who previously served as a federal prosecutor in the Public Integrity section of the Department of Justice, and Rachel Cohen, who previously served as an associate attorney at Skadden, one of the largest law firms in the world. We thank you both for being here. And now, Mr. Croswell, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Ranking Member Raskin, Ranking Member Durbin, Senator Schiff, and members of the House and Senate Judiciary Committees. For 10 years, I served as federal prosecutor with the Department of Justice. but I started my career in public service as an officer in the United States Marine Corps. I was motivated to join the military after September 11, 2001, and I've tried to live my life by the Marine Corps ethos: honor, courage, and commitment. My career as a federal prosecutor started in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I prosecuted white-collar fraudsters, drug traffickers, child predators, and violent criminals. I then served as a prosecutor in San Diego, California, where I prosecuted border crimes, including immigration offenses and the smuggling of dangerous drugs into this country from Mexico. Finally, for the last 4.5 years, I served as a prosecutor with the Department's Public Integrity Section. The Public Integrity Section was formed in the aftermath of Watergate, and it prosecutes corruption at the federal, state, and local levels. Throughout my time with the Justice Department, I followed the principles that guide all federal prosecutors. Follow the facts and the law wherever they may lead. Seek justice in an even-handed and apolitical manner. Act with fairness, impartiality, integrity, and adherence to the rule of law. On February 17th of this year, I resigned from the department as part of a sequence of events that can only be described as among the saddest in the department's history. I want to make clear that I had no role in the prosecution of New York City Mayor Eric Adams. My knowledge as to the facts and the evidence are limited to that which has been publicly reported. Let me also state that I speak for myself and myself alone. The chain of events that led to my resignation began when the acting Deputy Attorney General ordered the United States Attorney's Office in New York to dismiss the case against Mayor Adams. This was not based on the prosecution's merits. And we know this because he openly acknowledged in a memorandum that department leadership had decided to dismiss the case, quote, without assessing the strength of the evidence or the legal theories on which the case is based. This action leveraged the threat of future prosecution to ensure political compliance. The message that this sent, intentionally or unintentionally, was that public officials may be prosecuted or may be protected from prosecution as long as they're politically aligned with the Trump administration. In a properly functioning justice system, any public official wishing to avoid prison has to live by one rule of thumb: obey our nation's laws. And this action raised an even more chilling question. Is a Justice Department that will drop charges against those who acquiesce to a political demand a Justice Department that will bring charges against those who don't? When the acting U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York stood up for the rule of law and resigned rather than carrying out the order, the case was transferred to the Public Integrity Section. When our acting chief and our deputy chiefs stood up for the rule of law and resigned rather than carrying out the order, the remaining attorneys in our section were ordered to find 2 attorneys to sign a motion to dismiss. Ultimately, one of our attorneys signed a motion to stop the destruction of the section. The Public Integrity Section has protected the American people against abuses of power for nearly 50 years. But it was nearly eliminated in an hour over a dismissal of charges against a man that a grand jury had found to have engaged in a criminal abuse of power himself.
Fuck.
At this point, too many lines have been crossed, and so I too resigned. The threats against current members of the legal community, both in public service and private practice, are real, and they're of consequence. To those attorneys facing such threats, I share with you a message that I received on the day that my colleagues and I were ordered to dismiss the Adams case. It came from a fellow Marine. It read, "Keep your head up and keep your values and your oath at the forefront." Every attorney who takes an oath to uphold the law and every citizen who values democracy must have a line in the sand that cannot be crossed. Speaking out and doing the right thing increasingly comes with personal risk. But the day after I resigned, my sister had her first daughter, and I want my niece to know the same democracy that I've known. That's worth any cost. That's worth fighting for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Croswell. Ms. Cohen,
here we go.
Your opening statement, and I should take a second of personal privilege over here in the Senate just to say that Ms. Cohen was very close friends with my son Tommy at Harvard Law School, and he always told me that you were a woman of great intelligence and great character. It's good to see you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to the members today. I acknowledge this is not the first Monday of unemployment that I anticipated, but I am appreciative to be here. On March 20th, I tendered my conditional resignation to Skadden Arps, where I was employed as a finance associate. I did so because I believe our country is teetering on the brink of authoritarianism, and that many leaders of our most prestigious and profitable law firms recognize this risk and choose to ignore it because they are afraid. It's likely they're afraid of losing profits, but I think it's also likely that these leaders are afraid because standing up to authoritarianism is scary. It is easier to ignore what is happening than to acknowledge the fight that lies ahead. I resigned amidst a series of attacks on the legal profession that began on February 25th when the Trump administration stripped large law firm Covington and Burling of government contracts for representing special counsel Jack Smith during his investigation of the president. Then, the president entered an executive order against law firm Perkins Coie, not only stripping Perkins of government contracts, but also targeting third-party contractors that retained Perkins as counsel. Again, the administration named Perkins's past representation of clients and causes the president dislikes as the cause. Perkins chose to fight back. It challenged this blatantly unconstitutional order and successfully won a temporary restraining order the next day. In a normal presidency, this sends a message to the administration: press pause while the Perkins executive order is litigated. But the president continued to enter executive orders targeting firms based on past representation. Enter Paul Weiss, the next target of an executive order. Instead of fighting back, Paul Weiss offered the Trump administration $40 million in pro bono legal services for pet projects and promised to evaluate hiring and retention practices in partnership with the president. He withdrew the order. Paul Weiss's decision was a stunning betrayal of the firm's associates and the legal system that made its partnership very, very rich. Like calling this hearing, resignation was not my first choice. Throughout this period, associates across the industry were engaged in measured advocacy internally and externally, hoping to get our firms to band together and stand up to the administration's attacks on the broader legal profession. Paul Weiss's capitulation made me realize firm leadership was not motivated to act collectively. I became certain my employer was not going to be brave, and so I resigned. I was heartbroken to be proven right 8 days later on March 28th, when Skadden promised the Trump administration $100 million in pro bono legal services despite no executive order being entered against them. Other associates resigned in protest, 2 of them publicly. They're sitting behind me, and I am so unbelievably grateful. We did so because our adversarial legal system only functions when parties have representation. Everyone deserves an advocate. That principle is invoked by law firm partners to justify high profit but distasteful representations. Everyone deserves an advocate. American justice is not sua sponte. Without skilled lawyers, meritorious lawsuits may never be brought in the first place. Public interest attorneys, themselves separately targeted by the administration, are now also scrambling to replace resources and attention these firms historically provide as they challenge unconstitutional actions and provide direct representation to clients in need. This is intentional. Courts are perhaps our last line of defense against authoritarianism. I was raised to advocate and to be aware of the racial, financial, and other privileges I hold that make it more likely that my voice will be heard in halls of power. I am the daughter of 2 government attorneys who both served their country in the United States Air Force. While in high school in Ohio, my best friend was one of the only Latina students in our graduating class and faced overt racism. And I remember following a particularly egregious incident when we went to the principal together how my outrage was heard as much or more than hers. After studying political science at The Ohio State University, I spent 4 years teaching in Providence Public Schools, and my students, some of whom I know are watching right now, are brave and smart and bold. But there were many times where, despite the self-evidence of my students' brilliance, people did not believe it existed until a white native English speaker pointed it out. Acceptance to Harvard Law School and employment at Skadden made my already powerful voice even louder. The cowardice or apathy in some of these spaces at times caused disillusionment, but those dear to me, including your son, Congressman Raskin, made sure I remembered that just because such cowardice is common doesn't make it acceptable, and as you said, courage is a choice. I was asked here because my voice is loud, but I came here for the same reason I resigned. It is important for the very real people whose voices are not heard in the same way to have an advocate today and always. This advocacy cannot be defined by fear of future retribution. My students and non-white friends and colleagues deserve brave advocates. Mahmoud Khalil, Rumaiza Ozturk, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, and Andre Jose Hernandez Romero deserve brave advocates. People seeking abortion care or birth control or gender-affirming care deserve brave advocates. And to be clear, everyone else, the law firm partners enabling this slide into autocracy, the voters who put Trump into office and are waiting and will wait forever for him to care about the difficulties that they face. Those of us in this room today, we all deserve brave advocates. The administration cannot pick and choose who gets representation. It cannot use executive power to scare lawyers out of advocacy. If we allow any president to dictate who deserves a lawyer, our legal system fails. Like firm leaders, I am afraid of where this intimidation campaign leads. But unlike most of them, I will not allow my fear to manifest as silence. I choose courage. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, and I hope your courage and that of your two colleagues seated behind you will be contagious among the bar. Ms. Young, thank you for your service in the Civil Rights Division, and you're recognized for your testimony.
Thank you. Ranking Member Raskin, Ranking Member Durbin, Senator Schiff, and members of the committees, thank you for the opportunity to appear at this important hearing about the ongoing attacks on the Justice Department. After 18 years as a career litigator in DOJ civil rights and civil divisions, I recently founded Justice Connection, an organization mobilizing DOJ alumni to support the department's workforce. The Justice Department's 115,000 employees come to work every day to uphold the rule of law, keep our country safe, and protect our civil rights. All but a few hundred of these employees are career civil servants. The department's employees shield our communities from gun violence, prevent terrorist attacks on American soil, investigate and prosecute drug traffickers responsible for the deadly fentanyl epidemic, and so much more. Yet the Trump administration has unleashed an all-out assault on these public servants who are now facing attacks on their employment, their integrity, their well-being, and even their safety. Over the past 3 months, employees at all levels have been fired, suspended, demoted, and reassigned. They include senior career officials across the department, including in law enforcement components like the FBI and ATF. They also include officials assigned to cases disfavored by this administration. Many have been forced to resign rather than follow orders they concluded were unethical or unlawful. The attacks on the department's workforce are too widespread and numerous to catalog in a single hearing. But I'd like to highlight 3 particular aspects that are especially alarming. First, the administration's purge of career law enforcement and national security employees makes us less safe. Congress should be deeply concerned about the termination of some of the most senior leaders at the FBI and the ouster of top officials from the department's National Security Division, Criminal Division, and ATF. Removing these investigators and prosecutors has left our communities more vulnerable to violent crime and terrorism. Proposals to restructure and downsize the department's law enforcement work, for example, by merging ATF and DEA, will only make the problem worse. Second, the department's political leadership is getting rid of career employees because they refuse to behave unethically. To be clear, career employees should carry out the policy priorities of the executive branch, even when those priorities change across administrations. That's why long-term career lawyers like Erez Raveni zealously represent the interests of the United States in controversial cases, regardless of underlying policy judgments. But department officials must still follow ethical requirements, court rules, governing statutes, and the Justice Manual. Increasingly, career employees are being told that to keep their jobs, they must ignore their ethical duties and oath to uphold the Constitution. We should all be grateful to Erez Raveni and others who choose the rule of law over partisan loyalty, a choice DOJ employees should never be forced to make. Finally, the interim U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia has run roughshod over prosecutorial norms, threatened investigations of dedicated career prosecutors, and carried himself as a general in the president's war on his enemies instead of a backstop on crime in our nation's capital. Ed Martin Jr. came to the job with no prosecutorial experience and a history of representing January 6th defendants who his new office spent years successfully prosecuting. He's destabilized his office by firing prosecutors involved in those cases and demoting widely respected supervisors, in the process cratering morale and unit cohesion and eroding the judgment, experience, and institutional knowledge that are essential to the office's vital work. If his reign continues, D.C. will be far more vulnerable to drug trafficking, terrorist attacks, and violent crime. The animus facing DOJ employees is unlike anything I saw in my nearly 2 decades of service, and I don't believe there's any precedent for it in the department's history. We can't expect employees to counter these attacks alone. Protecting them and DOJ's mission-critical work must be a top priority of every member of your committees and of all Americans who will suffer if the department is destroyed. Thank you.
Mr. Raskin, do you want to begin questions?
This is powerful
Thank
stuff.
you very much. Ms. Oyer, the DOJ tried to stop you from coming today because they were very eager to silence your voice. You were fired hours after you refused to agree to the Deputy Attorney General's demand that you sign your name to a memo and that you recommend that Mel Gibson, a convicted domestic abuser who also happens to be a friend of Donald Trump and a special ambassador to Hollywood, get all of his gun rights restored. Is that right?
That's right.
And you refused to be complicit in that sequence of events because you had serious concerns. You said, quote, he is the profile of exactly who you would not recommend for this type of relief, citing his history of domestic violent abuse, alcohol abuse, and so on. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you were fired just a few hours after you told the Deputy Attorney General that you could not go along with this request.
Within hours, yes.
Now they're disputing your account. They're calling you a liar. You filed a FOIA request to demonstrate exactly what happened. Have you gotten the documents back yet?
I have not gotten any of the communications between myself and members of Mr. Blanche's staff, which illustrate that everything I have ever said about this matter is true.
And we have some of your contemporaneous communications with your own colleagues that corroborate your account.
That's right. I did, pursuant to FOIA, get some documents that were in possession of the Office of the Pardon Attorney, and they also corroborate my account.
All right. Then they had sent 2 armed marshals to your home to try to intimidate you with a letter telling you not to come today. Why did you decide to come?
I came because I don't want to be complicit in what is happening inside the Department of Justice, which is the misuse of the resources of the department to do political favors for friends of the president, for loyalists, and I just don't believe that that's right, and I don't want to be part of it, so I feel that I need to speak up.
Your courage is heroic to us, and I want to say to you and your family, thank you, and we are with you, and we're going to stand by you. Just this past weekend, we saw another shocking example of retaliation. DOJ suspended the prosecutor who had stated in court that a man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia of Maryland, had been erroneously deported to El Salvador as an administrative error and imprisoned there, where he faces serious danger and gang violence. The judge in the case demanded that the Trump administration seek Garcia's return to the United States, and the administration is, despite confession of its error, arguing to prevent Mr. Garcia's return, saying he's out of the custody of the United States, and they
And
wash
this
their
was
hands
prior to
of the
Judge
matter.
Roberts
Ms. Young, is
issuing
there,
the statement
any doubt in
supporting
your mind
the Trump
that this
administration.
prosecutor's suspension was retaliation simply for speaking the truth in court, as this prosecutor was sworn to do?
Judge Roberts has
That's
since
what the
ruled
facts seem to suggest.
to not retrieve Mr. Abrego
I think
or
that
Mr.
all of these
Abrego
events
Garcia.
should stir the conscience of America, and we thank you all for stepping forward now to sound a cry about what's taking place. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Raskin. I just want to put a fine point, Ms. Oyer, on your testimony. You apply the same standard, did you not, with reference to Mel Gibson, you would apply to anyone. That is, you looked at the facts to determine whether you should
Are we really just going to
recommend
stay on the Mel
restoration
Gibson
of gun
thing?
rights. You didn't consider
I'm sorry.
friendship with the president or any other impermissible consideration. You just looked at the facts. Is that right?
Well, Mr. Schiff, let me say that this is a project that was not within the normal purview of the Office of the Pardon Attorney. There was no real interest from this administration in considering the work that this office normally does, which is provide advice that is non-political in nature to the president about how to use his constitutional clemency power. So this whole project was something that was very different. It was not the normal work of the Office of the Pardon Attorney, but we jumped in and tried to do our best to support it because we understood that it was a priority of the leadership of the department. And in doing so, a primary concern was considerations of public safety. Would we be able to recommend that someone could safely receive their firearm rights back? And that was my concern.
Yes,
in the case
yes.
that you have
It's a
discussed,
temporary
that I did not have
stay.
enough evidence in front of me to make the recommendation
There,
that that could
he's
be done
basically
safely.
saying,
So based on the evidence in front of you, you didn't.
sorry, he's basically saying they don't have to meet the 11:59 p.m. deadline that was set by the judge today. Interestingly, also, as Roberts was issuing that decision, the Court of Appeals for that district upheld the district judge, I guess, decision to bring him back by tonight. And so Roberts said, nope, wait a minute. And I'm not sure, was there something, I can't recall if he said it was based on, something, that's right, they need to file by tomorrow morning. I think it's local time for them, 10 a.m. in Washington, D.C. Oh, it's 5 p.m. tomorrow? Oh, okay, great. Saying it. Sorry. Thank you, Pepper, for correcting me. So apparently both parties need to file something by tomorrow with additional information to SCOTUS by 5 p.m. tomorrow. So that's a mess. So that man remains unlawfully detained in a foreign prison. We sent him to a foreign prison. We admitted it was a mistake, but we're not going to go get him. All right. That makes no sense. Here we go. This is at 1 1/4 speed reminder.
Believe it could be the restoration of gun rights to Mel Gibson could be done safely.
I did not have enough information to convince me that I could recommend that it could be done safely.
And, your description of the office of the pardon attorney raises another question, which is, was your office consulted on the, 1,550 pardons of the January 6th insurrectionists that were granted by the president?
I learned about those pardons on the news, just like every other American.
And were you the head of that office?
I was.
I remember Pam Bondi testifying, I think in this very room, that she was going to go through those cases one by one. Normally, a pardon request for any of those individuals would have gone to your office for review and examination to determine if there was a grounds or there was acceptance responsibility or service of time or whatnot. Would that have been the process?
The ordinary process is that individuals apply through the Office of the Pardon Attorney. The office carefully vets the applications that we receive, and we look at all of the individualized factors that would support or weigh against a pardon in a particular case, and we make a recommendation on that basis. That's not something we were asked to do in that context, and in fact, it's not something that the office, as of the time of my departure, had been asked to do at all in the context of clemency grants by this administration.
So in the case of Mel Gibson, there was one standard for a friend of the president for a Hollywood celebrity with respect to gun right restoration, regardless of the public safety issue. In the case you testified about, Mr. Croswell,
I don't like Adam Schiff.
You resigned after your office attorneys in your office were asked to dismiss a case against the mayor of New York, which a grand jury found probable cause to believe he had engaged in corrupt acts. Your attorneys were asked, your colleagues were asked to dismiss that case, not because of any flaw in the evidence, not because of any insufficiency in the evidence, but because of some kind of a bargain between the Department of Justice and the mayor regarding an unrelated policy matter, that is immigration. Is that your understanding from the public record?
Senator, the memo that the acting deputy attorney general sent to the U.S. Attorney's office in New York.
Sorry, that other committee started.
It wasn't based on the facts or the legal theories on which the case was based. So that was very explicit.
And I was an assistant U.S. attorney for almost 6 years in California, and I just want to underscore how truly extraordinary that is, what you just testified.
Truly?
That a meritorious case is dismissed
Eric
against
Adams.
a politician, not because of a flaw in the evidence, not because of any prosecutorial misconduct, but because of an interest in having that politician carry the president's water over unrelated policy matters. I never saw anything like that in my almost 6 years in the department. Have you ever seen anything like that in your experience?
Senator, and really from when you start as a federal prosecutor, you're trained that everything is based on the facts and the law. We prosecute based on the facts and the law. And that ensures that, we're holding the bad guys accountable and innocent Americans remain free. As long as it's based on the facts and law, that's the best way for us to be doing our job effectively to keep the American people safe.
And I just want to underscore before I turn to Ranking Member Durbin, something you said in your testimony too, which is if the Justice Department believes that it can intervene in the case of friends of the president like Mel Gibson to give him special treatment, or in the case of the mayor of New York
Discord link.
to give him special treatment because of unrelated policy help to the president, they can also weaponize that same Justice Department against the president's perceived enemies. And Senator Whitehouse has well demonstrated how that principle has applied in going after funds made available for renewable energy projects under the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you for your testimony, and I now yield to Senator Durbin, Ranking Member Durbin, for his questions.
Thank you, Senator Schiff. And let me say to all of the witnesses who are here today, this remarkable hearing should help to restore the nation's faith in the democracy and the courage of the witnesses who have come here today to testify, and the courage of their family who stand behind them. Ms. Hoyer, it's my understanding that there are guidelines to be considered with pardon petitions. And among those guidelines, there's a requirement that they be granted in part based on, quote, the petitioner's demonstrated good conduct for a substantial period of time after conviction and service of sentence, and the quote, petitioner should be genuinely desirous of forgiveness rather than vindication.
Sorry, everybody.
One of the first acts of office, obviously, of President Trump was the
Super
full unconditional pardon of 1,500.
50 away, everybody.
1,600. The number I'm not sure,
we're not
but I
fucked,
think
Val. We're
it's in
going to
that
fix it.
range of those who participated in the insurrectionist riot here in the Capitol. Most of us at this table were witnesses to those crimes and certainly understood what happened to the men and women in law enforcement who still protect us to this day and risk their lives for us on January 6th. I've taken a look at some of those who were given these pardons and gone through what they have done even since a few weeks since that happened. It is outrageous, some of the conduct that has been well documented. My question to you as a pardon attorney at the time, were you consulted on the pardons of the January 6 rioters?
I was not consulted. No member of my office was consulted about those pardons.
What would have happened to the pardon request for January 6 offenders had the normal DOJ pardon process been followed?
Had any of those individuals applied for a pardon, they would have been in due course fully vetted on an individualized basis, and the office would have formed a recommendation about the individual applicants, which would have been provided to the president. The whole role of the office is to ensure that some uniform and consistent standards are provided, and more importantly, the role is to ensure that people who are waiting their turn, who have meritorious cases, that those cases can make their way to the president's desk. Those folks who have access to the White House through the front door, they don't need the help of the Office of the Pardon Attorney to elevate their cause, and there are thousands of ordinary Americans who are seeking the mercy of the president through the clemency process who are not being considered right now because the office is not being consulted. There are individuals who are serving incredibly lengthy sentences under outdated mandatory minimum sentencing laws who are seeking reductions of their sentence, people who have demonstrated rehabilitation over the course of decades in prison. There are people whose family members are writing in pleading for their return home. There are individuals who are in the community doing incredibly well, who have demonstrated rehabilitation and given back over the course of years, who are asking for pardons. And all of those people are on hold because no interaction was happening as of the time of my departure between the Office of the Pardon Attorney and the White House about clemency. The only people being considered for clemency were people who had some sort of inside access, inside track to the White House and could get their cases in front of the president without going through the ordinary process. And that is very concerning, and it causes real reason to lose confidence in the clemency process.
What's the wish list?
Real damage to our system of justice.
Have you followed what has happened to those who were given
More
pardons
perfect
by
union.
President Trump who were engaged in assaulting law enforcement here on Capitol Hill? Have you followed any of the cases? What has happened to them since?
I have, sir.
And what have you seen?
Well, there seems to be chaos in litigation that's happening around the country about determining what the intended scope of the pardons was. That's one thing I've observed, and that's one way that you can tell that my office was not involved. Had we been involved, we would have written the paperwork in an intelligible, clear way so there was no ambiguity about what it meant. But instead, there is litigation happening around the country in which the department is taking inconsistent positions and reversing itself about what those pardons mean. They have created a lot of chaos in a lot of different ways, and that is not the way the process is intended to work.
At least one of these people has been shot dead assaulting a police officer. Are you aware of that?
I don't want to overstep the area of my knowledge. I've seen things in the news, but I don't have any personal knowledge about the facts of that case or others.
Mr. Chairman, let me conclude by saying that
Jen,
last
you're
week
right.
our New Jersey colleague showed strength and resolve and courage to stand for more than 25 hours to speak for fairness and justice. He made history. This hearing continues in that spirit. Thank you all for your courage in attending.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Nadler from New York for his questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for holding this important hearing, shining a light on the most lawless administration in history. Donald Trump may pride himself on mastering the art of the deal. What he has really perfected is the art of the shakedown. Look no further than the corrupt quid pro quo with the mayor of my own city of New York, Eric Adams. After cozying up to Donald Trump, the charges against him were dismissed without prejudice. Was it because the prosecutors determined there wasn't sufficient evidence to bring him to trial? No, it was because Donald Trump wanted something from him. He wanted the mayor to help carry out his extreme immigration agenda against the wishes and the well-being of millions of New Yorkers. So he and his administration orchestrated a corrupt bargain to drop the charges in exchange for the mayor doing his dirty work. And by dismissing the charges without prejudice, meaning they could be reinstated at any time, effectively kept the mayor on the hook to assure he did whatever Trump wanted. And of course, there was the president's effort to bully and intimidate major law firms that employ lawyers who dared to try to hold him accountable when they served in government. His campaign of retribution is a classic case of extortion, threatening the livelihood of these firms unless they do his bidding. If it weren't for the Supreme Court's immunity ruling last year, Trump could be prosecuted for extortion, violation of the Hobbs Act. Of course, Trump's captive DOJ would not prosecute in any event. Mr. Crosswell, thank you for being here. In your testimony, you told us about the reasons why you resigned. Perhaps you can elaborate. I know you did not work directly on the case, but how would you characterize the evidence you have seen publicly reported against Mayor Adams? Was it substantial? Was it overwhelming? What were some of the most egregious examples of public corruption you saw in this matter, particularly as it related to the mayor?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. The case had not been dismissed with prejudice by Judge Ho last week. Mayor Adams would have had his trial, and like any other citizen, he'd be presumed innocent until proven guilty. That said, it was obviously deeply concerning that this was being dismissed for reasons that had nothing to do with the evidence. And so in terms of my own resignation, that was concerning. I probably would still be a public integrity had it not been for the fact that then five of my colleagues, incredibly talented, dedicated, and friends of mine with deep integrity, then also had to resign because they wouldn't sign the order. And that really kind of goes back to my experience as a Marine officer. You take care of the people that work for you, and you expect them to do the right thing. You don't force them to resign over it.
But based on public reports, you don't want to characterize the strength of the evidence at this point in that case?
Sorry?
I said, based on public reports, you don't want to characterize the strength of the evidence in the case?
If Congressman, if everything that was alleged in the indictment would have been able to be proven by the prosecutors, that looked like it would be a strong case.
Thank you, Mr. Croswell. Ms. Cohen, thank you for being here and sharing your story with us. I know you mentioned why you left Skadden Arps in your testimony. Can you tell us more about why you think the law firm gave in to the president's demands, how intense the pressure is coming from the administration, and how dangerous that type of pressure is to the rule of law in this country?
Absolutely. Thank you. I think that the strength of the pressure is exponentially higher because law firms are not standing together and are instead treating the president's attacks as if they are normal course and not something that would easily be challenged in a court. And so I think that the pressure here comes from presuming that standing up to the president means you fall out of his favor. I think that ultimately, because these executive orders have pointed to past representation, particularly challenging the government, it's massively dissuading large corporate law firms from taking cases that might be viewed as problematic to the Trump administration. They were instrumental in 2016 in bringing challenges against unconstitutional action, but it's not limited to 2016. Large corporate law firms provide a significant amount of financial and staffing resources to public interest organizations that are challenging unconstitutional actions under both Democratic and Republican presidents. They also provide an immense amount of direct services work, like to migrants seeking asylum and to veterans seeking benefits, things that the president alleges may be frivolous or counter to his interests.
Thank you. And if lawyers are too intimidated to take on the administration when it clearly violates the law, then what remedy do any of us have to enforce the law and protect our rights from a president with dictatorial demands?
Given the nature of our adversarial system, we have almost no hope. That's why we have to act now.
I think we've got to shift back to the Senate side now.
But what does act mean?
Thank you, Mr. Nadler. And I regret to announce that the Chief Justice, during the course of the hearing, Chief Justice Roberts has indefinitely blocked the court order requiring the return of Kilmore Abrego Garcia. This ruling came out during the course of this hearing. So we now have the deportation of someone in violation of court order, and a further court ordering his return has now been countermanded by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Senator Whitehouse, you are recognized.
If you read the appellate court decision regarding the stay, one of the things I think you'll note is the power of the language that was used by those judges. So I'm disappointed, I guess, yet again in Chief Justice Roberts' decision. I think we often read decisions which say the decision was misguided, the decision was erroneous, the decision was clearly erroneous, the decision was wrong, the decision stood on inadequate facts. In this case, the appellate court said the decision was unconscionable. You don't see that very much. So my questions will be to you, Mr. Croswell. I think you're the most experienced criminal prosecutor in the panel. And one of the things that we've seen has been the Trump MAGA crowd parroting the notion that there was weaponization of the Department of Justice against Mr. Trump, which is obviously a narrative that you would like to deploy if your leader is in fact a criminal, was convicted in certain places, was indicted in others, and had the prosecutive team say, hey, we had a good case here when it was closed down. So faced with all that evidence, obviously the thing you want to say is weaponization, fake news, all the usual denials. So I'm going to take a minute and compare what happened in a recent case, the one that was referred to about the unlawful effort to try to seize climate funds. And because the veto period had passed by about 2 years, to cook up analysis that would have allowed them to seize the funds had to cook up a crime that would give them the ability to say, well, while we're investigating this crime, we need to seize the funds. So that's the backdrop. And in the course of that, the first thing that happened is that the political appointee was told by his career staff that there was no evidence of any crime and they couldn't proceed. Do you recall any time in any of the Trump federal cases where a political appointee was told by the career staff that they had no case?
Senator, I've been doing the job for 10 years, and I can tell you that I have never, ever seen anyone, myself or anyone else, be directed to prosecute or drop a case based on politics.
Yeah.
It just does not. It does not.
And in this
figure
case, the woman who was at the head of the office who told the political appointee that he had no case was forced to resign as her penalty for not going forward. Nothing like that ever happened in any of the Trump investigations that I can recall. Do you have any recollection of any career folks being fired for refusing to go forward with a case that had no merit?
Senator, my supervisors have always expected me to do the right thing. I think something that people need to understand about prosecutors is we're unique in the sense that our job is not to win our case, it's to do justice. And so every supervisor I've ever had.
There's the link
would
to
demand
the
nothing less than
appellate
me to do
decision
right
in the
thing
chat.
For justice. And if that means dismissing a case, that's what you would do.
And then let me just go forward a little bit more, because after that, what happened is that the political appointee went forward with a pleading that no career attorney would sign. The only signature on it was the political appointee. Did you recall that ever happening in any of the Trump cases?
In my personal experience, I've never had a situation where I was asked to do something that, except for the Eric Adams case, that was the first time I was asked to sign something that
unusual to go forward with a pleading where no career attorney will sign for the Department of Justice, correct? Only with a political appointee signature.
Yes, Senator.
Yes, it is. And then in the Trump cases, I don't recall anyone ever getting shot down, any of the prosecutive team, when they went for an order. And in this case, when the political appointee went for the order and went to the magistrate judge, he got shut down. When I was a U.S. attorney, if we got shot down for an order by one of our district judges, that would have been like, stop, figure out what went wrong. This is a never event. Let's figure this out so it doesn't happen. Do you recall that any of the Trump orders were ever shot down by a judge, or every time that prosecution team went to a court for an order, they were successful?
Senator, not sure about which order. I would say that it would be if I went to a court and shot down for probable cause. That's happened, but you try to avoid that.
Yeah, you try very hard to avoid it. And after that's happened, do you ever go to another district to try to shop the same case where the judge had found that there was no basis to proceed?
It's never come up in my career, Senator. If I did, I would certainly tell the next judge that the last one found no probable cause, and that probably would not bode well.
And then I don't believe in the Trump cases any prosecutor ever made public statements outside of the pleadings about the culpability or wrong of the subject of the investigation. And yet in this case, both the political appointee and the agency chief who was engaged made public derogatory comments, false allegations, it seems, of fraud, defamatory per se. What are the concerns of the Department of Justice when political appointees make statements about the potential guilt or culpability of an uncharged person?
Senators, you're aware we conduct grand jury investigations in secret for a reason, because if we can't substantiate the case against someone, we close it without the public ever knowing, and that's to protect the American people.
And in this matter, the last thing that happened was that the agency had been going forward with its own case under the president's executive order, shifted to the fraud argument to try to improve its argument before the federal judge, not a magistrate judge, the U.S. District Court judge. And the U.S. District Court judge said, guys, there's no evidence here. You've shown me no evidence to support this claim that there's fraud or misconduct here, and yet they continue. And I can pretty well bet that in none of the so-called weaponized Trump cases was there a moment when a federal judge said there is no evidence here, and yet the department continued it. So I guess the conclusion I draw from this is that there is fake weaponization, which is what you say when you're following somebody who has serious criminal liability, has been indicted, has been convicted, and you want to make all that go away with a narrative about, oh, that's just weaponization. And then you put your people in power, and what happens? The actual weaponization begins. And this counts, by my count, 7 red flags, any one of it which would have called a check to a case in the normal Department of Justice. So thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse. Recognizing Congressman Hank Johnson of the 4th District of Georgia and the ranking member of our subcommittee on courts, IP, and artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member and Mr. Ranking Member, for holding this hearing. You know, after losing the 2020 election, the lame duck President Donald Trump embarked upon an illicit and multi-pronged scheme to remain in office beyond his term. This plan culminated in the January 6, 2021 insurrection, which failed. But Donald Trump wasn't finished.
Now that's
Over the next 4 years, he hatched a plan to create the conditions where, if he won the presidency again, he would never have to leave office. And during that planning process, Trump was given an assist when the Supreme Court of the United States, which he magnified with 3 appointees, ran the clock out on efforts to prosecute him while giving him immunity from prosecution for official acts while in office. Once back in the White House and with immunity so that he was above the law, Trump's first order of business was to destroy the rule of law so that he could then systematically dismantle our democracy. And there would be no checks on his illegal behavior. In less than 100 days, he has turned the Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice. He effected this transformation by installing sycophantic loyalists and purging career employees whose only offense was adherence to the rule of law. Good people like our witnesses here. But even purging career employees is not enough for a tyrant. A tyrannical leader like Trump must also intimidate people to ensure their silence. And that's why Trump's DOJ directed armed U.S. Marshals to deliver a letter to Ms. Oyer at her home about testifying to Congress. And it's why the administration is now claiming that she is muzzled by executive privilege, which is a baseless claim. And going after government lawyers is not enough for this aspiring dictator. Trump is also attacking lawyers in the private sector in an attempt to decimate our system of adversarial justice, which is crucial to a functioning legal system. Any law firms that employed lawyers who previously investigated Trump, challenged his administration, or worked on causes he didn't like were slapped with executive orders. And these executive orders threatened to strip law firms of security clearances, terminate government contracts with the firm, or deprive them of business in any way that they can, even preventing their employees from entering government buildings. The idea is to scare lawyers enough so that no one brings cases
I almost
against
think
Trump
he might want to
or his
watch, him and
administration's
Howard
illegal
Nuttlicker
actions.
might want to watch
And even though
Windows and
Trump thinks
cups of
he has
tea.
the Supreme Court in his
I
pocket,
know.
he
Just
cannot
thinking,
risk
and limos.
cases
Don't get in a
working their
limo.
way through the legal system and finding out that even for the justices he appointed, it might be a bridge too far in destroying our democracy. So far, Trump has issued 5 executive orders targeting top powerful and wealthy law firms to send a message to the less powerful and wealthy that if you challenge his illegal actions, they'll be held to play. Several of his targeted law firms have folded like cheap lawn chairs, while others have stood
He
and
wants
fought
to show
back.
you his butthole.
Trump wants to scare the legal profession
Now he's
into
gonna go
silence,
take a
and we're
nap.
honored today to have these brave and patriotic lawyers with us who refuse to be silenced. Mr. Crosswell, you know, you found yourself at a crossroads after Donald Trump returned to office and acting Deputy Attorney General Bove ordered you and your colleagues at the Public Integrity Section to sign a motion to dismiss the indictment against New York City Mayor Adams. Is it true that Mr. Bove told you and your colleagues that whoever complied would be rewarded with a position of leadership within the department, and that whoever pushed back would face professional consequences?
If I could interrupt for 1 second, the witness can answer the question. We're being reminded that we have just 5 minutes each. I think a lot of us on the House side were under the impression that people spoke for 15 minutes here, but it is a 5-minute rule we're going to comply with. Yeah.
Well, I've only gone for 5 minutes and 13 seconds. But if you would answer that question, I'll gladly yield back my time.
Congressman, my best recollection of the conversation that what was said to us was in my resignation letter, and I think it was very much implied, if not stated, that there'd be promotional opportunities for anyone that would sign the motion. And I also think it's very fair to say there was an implicit threat for those that won, and that was done through reference to what took place in the Southern District of New York. That's my best recollection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar.
Yes, thank you, Senator Schiff. And I just want to correct the record, Representative Raskin. We don't speak for 15 minutes. We speak for 25 hours here in the United States Senate. So thank you both for holding this hearing. And thank you also for shining light on the simple idea that the president is not king. We are not a kingdom. And it is many of our colleagues, sadly, on the Republican side of the aisle are acting like subjects to the king instead of being independently elected officials, to the point where we're holding this shadow hearing because they won't hold such a hearing. So I'll start with you, Mr. Crosswell. And I, as a former prosecutor, I was so in awe of what you and others did after you were forced to drop bribery, or asked to drop bribery charges against Mayor Adams, and wouldn't do it. The words of the lead prosecutor on the case, Hagan Skoten, forever I will remember. He said, "I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion, but it was never going to be me." And I'm sure you felt the same way. Could you talk about why why you
But it was
made
never
this
going to
decision.
be me.
Thank you,
I
Senator.
love that line.
Senator, as I think I mentioned earlier, I would probably still be at public integrity. As deeply concerning as what happened with Eric Adams was, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was what happened to my colleagues. These were individuals I cared about, and
Great. Now all
they had to
your
resign because they
porn
weren't gonna sign a
addicts are
motion,
going to pour into other
that should not have
states.
resigned. And for me, and I think also
You're
just the fact
welcome,
that then
Georgia.
we were ordered to do the same thing. For me, it almost felt like an abuse of power against
Jay
me, myself.
nailed it.
And
The
so,
ones who banned it have the
I
worst
just-
hard drives.
I mean, I didn't have a job lined up or insurance lined up, but I'd rather be unemployed and not be insured than work for someone that would do something like that to my colleagues and to me.
Okay.
Yeah, you would.
Ms. Young, kind of coming off that, how does firing career prosecutors or trying to make them to do something that they consider illegal, how does that weaken public safety, send the wrong message to law enforcement in general? Of course, this includes people who just happened to work on the January 6th cases, who were just called in to play various roles in it. Might have been someone who'd been in the office for a year or someone who'd been there longer. Just talk generally about how it weakens the rule of law and law enforcement.
Sure. Prosecutors at the Justice Department are some of the best lawyers in the country. So when you fire them, you necessarily make American communities more vulnerable. When you fire national security lawyers, you make our nation's security less tight. These terminations are due to career employees doing their jobs, accepting cases that they were assigned. Not prosecuting these cases would be insubordination. It's antithetical to the nature of career service. And people are resigning preemptively. And it's also going to prevent really great lawyers from wanting to go to the Justice Department. And lots of really great lawyers have always wanted to go to the Justice Department. So the more of these terminations we see, the more
Look at the
intimidation we see,
cuties sitting
the less
behind
safe
them,
we're gonna
nodding
be,
their heads.
and
Oh
the
my
less
gosh.
the less strong and seasoned and a DOJ will be. And without a strong, robust DOJ, the rule of law will suffer.
Exactly. Quickly, Ms. Oyer, Justice Department's taken oath to the Constitution. Could you, in 30 seconds, the difference between representing the people of the U.S. and representing the president? As we know, the line has been completely crossed here, as you know from your own experience.
It's very concerning that the department is currently being run by people, all of whom represented the president personally. There are certain decision-making authorities of the department that have been delegated to people who personally represent the president, including oversight of matters of ethics and professional responsibility. That's evidenced in the letter that was sent to me, which was sent to me by someone who was one of President Trump's personal defense attorneys.
Is that what Rudy,
this is a
Rudy
way of stripping
Giuliani
away any
had?
of the safeguards against the tremendous powers of the Department of Justice. The administration is currently attacking the safeguards within the department, as well as the safeguards external to the department, like the defense bar, that play a vital role in
Which
pushing
Ms.
back.
Cohen is well aware of. Yes.
Yes. So it's sort of a multi-pronged attack on the rule of law, and that has real consequences for real people, including things like individuals being deported mistakenly or individuals being swept up in immigration raids who happen to actually be U.S. citizens. It's very, very concerning.
Thank you.
Recognize the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, Mary Gay Scanlon, who is the ranking member on the Constitution
Has she
Subcommittee.
spoken yet, Jim?
Thank
Has
you for convening us
Corinne
today, and
spoken
thank
at
you
a
so
press
much
thing
to our
yet?
witnesses. I really am in awe of your courage and your dedication to the rule of law, which is what makes our country great. And we all really, really appreciate your willingness to stand up and be counted when it really counts. Over the past few weeks, the White House has unleashed an unprecedented attack upon lawyers and judges who serve our American justice system, with the White House attempting to suppress
Corinne
challenges
Clifford
to the
is
lawless
a
orders
streamer,
that it is issuing,
and she was
threatening
hired
and
by like
intimidating some of the
a way,
country's most
way
accomplished lawyers, some
weird
of whom
Trump
are with us here
outlet,
today.
actually,
Congress under
a
Republican
year or
leadership
2
has
years
thus
ago.
far acquiesced to this lawless behavior.
So she's
the courts and lawyers are
part of
acting
one of
as the
these
primary
junk
defense
right-wing
against executive
channels.
action, and doing so successfully in the vast majority of almost 200
But it's pretty
cases
close
brought
to the
so far.
administration.
I
The
wanna
guy
focus
who
on the
runs
orders
it, I
and
can't remember his
sanctions
name
issued,
right now. But
against
anyway, her
private law firms,
boss.
because that's
But
the
it's
world
real
I
janky.
came
It's
out of.
terrible. It's a terrible
These law firms
show.
have been selected because of their
It's like
relationship
this
to attorneys
happened
who
or
represented
something.
the
It's
president's
named something
political
really
opponents,
stupid.
opposed his
This shit
administration's actions, or
happens
aided efforts
network.
to hold him
Yes.
accountable.
Yeah,
These firms and
America
lawyers
Happens.
targeted by the administration have been the
That's
standard
it.
bearers.
That's it.
for
Thanks,
the
Oomph.
highest
America
ethical
Happens
obligation of their
Network.
profession
I've
to
watched it
provide
like
free legal
twice,
services
and that's all I
in the
can
public
do.
interest,
Because
or
to
pro
me,
bono
it's like
publico.
it doesn't make
They've
any
been willing
sense.
and able to dedicate top
Sorry.
legal talent to
Okay, I'm going to interrupt her so we can talk about it. Okay, so first of all, is he doing a military parade? That's ridiculous. I can't even. And has Corinne actually spoken at one of the press things? Because everyone's going to clip that. That's amazing. That's when you know how far this White House has fallen into the pits of hell. When you give Corinne Clifford, aka, what is the song? My pussy. And what her claim to fame prior to becoming this shill for a minor Trump network player, her claim to fame was that she was part of this counterculture online, I guess. I don't know. I think that's giving them a lot of credit. Freedom pussy, that's right. Yeah, she wrote a song about her pussy. And actually it's kind of a bop. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of a bop. But anyway, the point is that she would make her living like hanging out with younger dudes who are considered like extremes, like just real life streamers, right? And this counterculture is named after one of the main dudes that kind of, I guess, pioneered a lot of this streaming and is infamous for hitting on young women or children, what the fuck, like teens. His Ice Poseidon. So they call this counterculture world IP2. Don't ask me why. I don't really know. It just happened it's almost like a Chan thing, if you will, like a list of streamers that are watched very obsessively by the Chan type of rejects, if you will. Like the ones who lost their 8chan password, right? But they could still get into YouTube. And you see these guys all over the world. They're like, Johnny Somali is in trouble in South Korea for breaking all kinds of laws just because he wants to film himself being a dick. That is what IP2 is. Film yourself being a dick. That's exactly what it is. What was that TV show? What TV show? I can't remember now. But anyway, so the fact that this woman who has gone from living in like a content house with a bunch of younger people and getting really drinks, the TV show as a lifestyle, Jackass. Yes. Okay. Kind of, but less structured. People overdose. People get sexually molested. Like there's all kinds of crazy shit that happens in this part of social media. And it's very accessible and whatever, right? And entire platforms are really being built around it. Like I would consider Kick, which is a different streaming platform, to be completely built around the world of these types of assholes. They should call this one Assholes instead of Jackass. They could call it Assholes. But anyway, I digress. Corinne happens to be part of that world. And she's kind of a big deal in that world, actually. Or she was. And she used to hang out with Andy Dick because he was part of that world. He brought a lot of attention to that because he was like a drug addict and hanging out with these losers. And he's a loser. So it was just a bunch of losers. That's what it is. And Corinne's a loser. But now Corinne has a fucking White House press pass. And some of us who have watched Corinne over the years and even written songs about her, Boomflow. Yeah, I don't know. But it's kind of fun. I'll call that color commentary, adding to the adding to the lore. There you go. All right, here we go. Let's watch the rest of this. Sorry for that interruption.
Undertake the costly and time-consuming
that's right.
work
Gal met her at the Reawaken America tour. That's right.
Of ensuring due process in difficult cases, reforming broken systems, and vindicating
what Max
human
said,
and
too.
civil rights of those subject to our laws. This administration's attempt to sideline these efforts stands in stark contrast to prior administrations which understood that our justice system only works when everyone has access to representation. And I'm thinking about 1963, President Kennedy's call to action to the most prominent law firms in our country, asking them to marshal the resources of the private bar
I have a
to
picture.
protect
I have her
Americans'
head.
civil rights. The Trump administration has chosen instead to undertake a grotesque attack on the fundamental right of access to justice. So while the action of targeting private law firms are designed to hurt those most at risk, those who can't afford a lawyer, and specifically those with the guts to stand up to this administration's blatant violations of the Constitution, due process, and civil and human rights. Now, we've seen the administration's campaign begin to achieve its purpose, intimidating lawyers who might represent those challenging its actions. Some law firms targeted by the White House have settled with the White House. Others that have regularly participated in this kind of class action and other work in the past are declining to do so. This administration is employing the tactics used by authoritarian regimes to crack down on those who defend the rule of law. Places like lawyers, universities, civil society, and the independent media. So now is the time when all lawyers, law firms, judges, law schools, bar associations, and elected officials of every and no party have to stand up and condemn this attack. Because democracy doesn't only die in darkness, it also dies with silence or acquiescence. So I am encouraged by the growing resistance to these actions. And Ms. Cohen, whether willingly or not, you have ended up being a face of that.
That's her.
I understand that you participated in leading a letter that over 1,800 junior lawyers at these prestigious law firms have joined. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. As I stated in my
Congratulations,
opening
girl. She
testimony,
blocked me a long
it was
time
not my
ago.
first choice
She
to
does
resign.
not like me.
I adore my coworkers. I did really meaningful work, both billable and pro bono. And I also expected that firm leadership would do the right thing, not just at my own law firm, but across the industry. And so something that was frankly quite scary was that all of the conversations about what the executive orders were aimed at doing and were doing, everyone agreed across political stripes, across level of seniority, that the president was targeting private law firms in an attempt to scare lawyers broadly. But no one was willing to say anything. And so I worked with a group of a variety of other associates to put together a way that people could anonymously express their concerns about this. We modeled it off a statement that was put out by the American Bar Association, a nonpartisan association, prior to even the Perkins executive order coming out in the first place about these troubling rule of law attacks. And so that was just one of many steps that we took to not reach this point in the hopes that firms would come together and do the right thing.
I do think it's really important that lawyers and law firms stand together. I mean, after all, it is through having a rules-based order that many of these law firms have been able to be so successful, and the erosion here affects everybody. So thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. And now it gives me pleasure to introduce Ryan. You'll be happy to know another former Marine, but also someone, Ms. Young, who has been leading our inquiry into what the law firms are doing, is Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is no such thing as a former Marine, as we know. Semper Fidelis. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing, and to both of you, Senator.
Oh, yes, she does. Let me tell
Schiff
you.
and,
Let me tell
Mr.
you about
Raskin.
Gal.
Thank you, Congressman Raskin, for joining me in seeking to shine light. And
Well,
for your
I met
support,
Riven.
Senator Schiff.
I got to get
because
that
America
tape out. I'm going to put that
needs to
out.
be aware, needs to be afraid of what is happening here, and needs to know that there are people like you who took the risk and made the sacrifice that others far wealthier, more resourced, and more powerful were unwilling to take, members of our profession, who declined to stand up and speak out. But here's the good news for America. There are lawyers
Gal, didn't you
willing
meet Ivan too?
to take on this fight against the
That's a
bully.
rat.
504 signed an amicus brief. Others are representing the firms. Let's say their names. Covington and Burling, Perkins Coie, Jenner and Block, Wilmer Hale, who are trying to break this pattern. And it is a pattern. Donald Trump hammers, bullies, intimidates, and then offers to negotiate. He's doing it with law firms. He's done it with universities. He's doing it with countries and companies through tariffs. It is part of a slide toward tyranny. Tim Snyder, my friend, a professor at Yale, has said the first rule of tyranny
Moved to Canada
from the 20th century, the first lesson is do not obey in advance. That is what Skadden Arps, Milbank, and Wilkie Farr have done. They didn't even wait for the executive order. They obeyed in advance. And I just want to make really clear what is most offensive to me. They acceded, in effect, to allow Donald Trump to tell them who their clients would be and who they would hire. I've been United States Attorney in Connecticut. I was Attorney General for 20 years, but I've also been in private practice. And if there's one thing that matters to me as a trial lawyer, and I still consider myself proudly a trial lawyer, It is nobody tells me what to do. And when I represent a client, it is 100%. And when I take on a client against a big corporation and then some other big corporation or that corporation offers a great representation to me, I say, sorry, can't do it. I've got the little guy whom I represent, and I'll give up the bonuses and the wealth and the money and the billable hours because I believe in my profession. Donald Trump has boasted, and I'm quoting him, that he has built, quote, an unrivaled network of lawyers. These lawyers are in his pocket. And when they're in his pocket, they cannot represent that little guy. They cannot represent the individuals that Wilkie Farr did, that got them blacklisted. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who volunteered as poll workers in Georgia in 2020 to help their fellow citizens vote in the midst of the global pandemic. He is depriving resources of people who really need that representation. And I'll tell you what striking me as most abhorrent and repugnant, as reported in the New York Times, and Mr. Karp stated it, there were other law firms, and I'm quoting now from the New York Times of March 14th, some of the biggest competitors were calling top lawyers at the beleaguered law firm, one of the nation's most prestigious, asking if they would jump ship along with their lucrative clients. The firms are named Sullivan and Cromwell and Kirkland and Ellis. And Congressman Raskin and I are writing those two firms, along with the others, and asking them what they did to try to lure away those clients and partners.
He's way
to try to
estranged.
poach their business and their resources. Most abhorrent to me is the potential that they acted in that way. Ms. Cohn, do you know of any specifics about attempts to take away lawyers or clients from either your firm or others that you may have heard?
Senator Blumenthal, I read the same report, and I think it's particularly ironic given that I'm also reading reports that Kirkland and Ellis is now in talks to acquiesce to the Trump administration in advance. So any clients thinking about jumping ship to any other law firm should remember that until they stand together, there's no chance that their new representation will be left alone either. But I will just say, I was a third-year associate when I left, and I wish you had someone more senior here to talk to you about this. But unfortunately, you do not, because the only people in this industry who have been willing to speak on this issue and give up their salaries in order to do so are associates, and I was not close to client work. But thank you for
I
raising.
apologize for going over my time. I'd ask that the Truth Social and the New York Times story that I quoted be entered in the record.
Without objection.
And the distinguished lady from Vermont, Ms. Ballant, is recognized for a questioning.
Thank you to the chairs. First of all, I really want to acknowledge at the top the courage that it took for each of you to come here today. It shows an incredible amount of fortitude. These are incredibly scary times, and it's not easy to stand up and speak out against authoritarians. It's not easy to stand up and speak against the president. So all you have to do is look at our Republican colleagues, both in the House and the Senate, who are remaining silent. So the fact that you're willing to be here to show your face, to speak up for what's right, it matters. And I have to tell you that this is a critical moment right now, and you are doing the right thing, even though it's frightening, because you're giving all of us just a little bit of hope in these incredibly dark times. Hope that we're going to be able to turn the tide on this. Hope that more people will see you and stand up to the corruption and the cronyism. And just a little bit of hope that we'll remember that who we are as a people, that we're beholden to the rule of law. And as my colleagues have said, that we are not beholden to a king or a dictator. So know that you are doing the right thing, even though it feels terrifying. Authoritarians like Trump have nothing but contempt for the democratic process and for due process. They mock the principle of accountability because they have none. They portray themselves as victims of so-called lawfare so they can discredit an entire system. That's what this is about. This is about discrediting the system. So we can't believe in lawyers. We can't believe in institutions. And that's terrifying. That is convincing all of us that the rot goes so deeply that the foundation of our very democracy can't be trusted. Ms. Cohen, in your resignation letter, which I have to say was such a shining light, you talk about fear and powerlessness that motivated some of these law firms in the country to cave. And that's what they did. They caved. They are bootlicking. They are bending a knee. Make no mistake. That's what's going on here. How is it that some of the most prestigious and powerful law firms in this country feel that they have to act in this way?
I wish I had a good answer for you, but when I read things like Brad Karp saying that it was an existential crisis for a firm whose profit per equity partner was over $7 million last year, I don't know what to tell you. I apologize.
That's right.
Profit?
That's exactly right. It's not an existential crisis where they're going to lose some money. We're talking about the rule of law. It's disgusting. And the courage that you have to be here when so many of your senior colleagues say nothing and grovel to a would-be king
Don't get me wrong,
speaks
I love
volumes
it.
about your integrity. We're in strange times. There were protests across the nation. This weekend, the Chief Justice of the Vermont State Supreme Court, who, trust me, does not usually comment on political matters, he said, quote, "No prior administration has taken such concerted action against the bar. An effort to erode an institutional pillar designed to check abuse of power." When the Chief Justice is finding his voice and speaking publicly, you would think that some law firms could do the same when it's just about the almighty dollar. I want to conclude by saying Trump and all of his enablers, whether they're in Congress or whether they're at these law firms, seem to think that they can outrun this, that somehow we're going to ride this out. We're not going to ride this out. It's not going away. It's only when good people stand up and say, no, I refuse to bow. And my hat is off to all of you. You are showing courage that so many people in this moment are not. And I'm going to be able to go home this weekend, the end of this week, and talk to my two kids. I got 2 high school students, and they're going to want to know that there are good people doing the right thing, and I'll be able to tell them about this. I yield back.
Senator Hirono from the great state of Hawaii.
Thank you very much. And I thank all of you for being here. And obviously, there were a lot of people here who really care about adherence to the rule of law. And I'm glad that I was able to make it for this portion. So I thank Congressman Raskin and Senator Schiff. So these are not normal times. We have a president who doesn't think that the rule of law applies to him. Aided and abetted by a Supreme Court in their immunity decision. So what we have is a president who will go after anybody, including countries, corporations, law firms, anybody who he thinks can stand up to him. Basically, he is setting things up so that he can extort from them what he wants. And it is more than sickening to know that the people who are supposed to be standing up for the rule of law, I would say the lawyers, judges, in our country, and we see many of them just, I would use the word caving, and that is why caving to the demands of this very corrupt president. So, Rachel, Ms. Cohen, thank you very much for having the courage, and for you to note that, it's too bad that none of the partners who are making millions of dollars at your firm would stand up to do the right thing. It's pretty pathetic. And for the 500 or so law firms that filed an amicus brief on behalf of Perkins Coie, I say aloha to them, because if we don't all stick together, we're all going to be divided and conquered. So thank you very much. And for each of you, some of you who I know worked for the DOJ, in fact, I think it's Ms. Young. You worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office. You worked for the DOJ. You have a wonderful background. I remember when we had the hearing on Pam Bondi, because she has said at some point that we should go after the prosecute the prosecutors and investigate the investigators. During her confirmation hearing in the Senate, I asked one of the witnesses who came on the second day of her hearings, what would be an indication that she is in fact weaponizing the DOJ to exact retribution, et cetera. And this witness, who happened to be a law professor at Georgetown, my alma mater, and she said, you're going to see people resigning, and that's what's happening, or you're going to see people being fired, and that's what's happening. All is not well in the DOJ. I did want to ask a specific question of Ryan Coswell. When Deputy Attorney General Tom Blanchard came before the Judiciary Committee, I asked him about why he was allowing attrition at a different part of the criminal division, the child exploitation and obscenity section, which fights child sexual exploitation. And he responded by suggesting that only U.S. attorneys' offices really prosecute crime prime and downplaying the role of criminal division trial attorneys in the DOJ. As someone who worked in both the U.S. Attorney's Office and criminal division, can you explain why having criminal division attorneys in D.C. is important and what we will lose if we gut the criminal division?
Thank you, Senator. What the criminal division litigating sections like public integrity bring is a degree of expertise. So certainly there are assistant U.S. attorneys around the country that can handle prosecutions of public corruption. We have a deep bench of very talented lawyers. They're experts in this. They can go all over the nation. And you mentioned that I have been in AUSA and other districts. When I was a prosecutor in San Diego from 2017 to 2020, I was prosecuting many immigration cases. And the entire time you had a public integrity section back in Washington. Hypothetically, if I had a situation where potentially a federal agent was allowing smuggling to happen because that agent was corrupt, I could call that public integrity section and get their help in prosecuting that case. And so if you worry about corruption, if you worry about abuse of power, it's good to have 30 or so attorneys who are able to take those cases on, which also allows
I can
U.S. attorneys'
imagine.
offices
I knew a
to
few
focus on
lawyers
violent crime,
myself
immigration
in
crimes,
San Francisco,
fraud,
especially.
predation on children.
I
That's the value of
imagine.
it.
So obviously, but the Justice Department is not particularly interested in preserving the expertise or keeping the expertise in all these areas within the DOJ, and they have their own agenda, which is what I would not call it the people's agenda. Again, for Ms. Young, thank you, for what you are doing. And in fact, when the AG Bondi and interim D.C. U.S. Attorney Ed Martin referred to DOJ attorneys as the president's lawyers, I think you were asked this question before, but do any of you, but especially for you, Ms. Young, do you consider the attorneys at the DOJ or U.S. Attorney's Office the president's attorneys? And if not, who are they attorneys for?
Sure. DOJ attorneys are absolutely not the president's attorneys. The president is free to hire as many attorneys as he wants. Attorneys at DOJ represent the United States and the American people, and that's it.
And to think that we now have a attorney general who says she is the president's attorney, and she's certainly acting in that way. So there you go. It's just entire takeover of, I would say, an institution, the Justice Department, that is supposed to be prosecuting criminals and doing the things that I know that all of you have been asked. I can't tell what the time is there. What is that?
The time is up.
Okay. Well, that explains it. But we have so many concerns, and again, I thank each of you for resigning, being fired, doing all the things that requires a lot of courage to do. But we just need to continue to fight back. Thank you,
Senator.
I recognize the distinguished gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Garcia of the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Ranking Member Raskin and Senator Schiff, for convening this most timely and important hearing to spotlight Donald Trump's assault on our democracy and legal system, and thanks all the witnesses for standing for justice and democracy as well in your respective positions. As an immigrant and an organizer who hails from Chicago, who's fought for civil rights and against machine politics for decades, I understand that the rule of law has always been a work in progress in our country. Even before Donald Trump entered the political arena, many immigrants and working class people have felt that the law was written and enforced to benefit the wealthy and well-connected at their expense too often. But in the history of this country, the president has ever weaponized the law to this extent. No president has done that before, for his personal benefit and in the service of outright authoritarianism. My colleagues have highlighted many important issues, and I want to focus on the administration's shameful and unlawful treatment of immigrants. There are too many abuses to name in 5 minutes. Trying to end birthright citizenship, which is written into the Constitution, attacking jurisdictions that have welcoming statuses, and which studies show lower crime rates and increased trust within those communities. Creating a draconian registration requirement, which goes into effect this week, by the way, on April 11th, detaining Mohammed Khalil and others solely because of their protected speech. And of course, lawlessly invoking the Alien and Enemies Act on false pretenses to detain people and spend taxpayer dollars to send them to a notorious prison in El Salvador. One of those people is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident, father, and a metal worker, whom the administration sent to El Salvador despite Judge Boasberg's ruling and despite a 2019 court order specifically prohibiting him from being removed to that country because of the risk of persecution. Last week, the administration admitted that its removal of Mr. Abrego Garcia was a mistake. At a hearing on Friday, a senior career DOJ official, Erez Raveni, expressed frustration that the Trump administration had taken these actions and produced no evidence that Mr. Abrego Garcia is gang affiliated or that his removal was justified. The judge then ruled that the treatment of Mr. Garcia was shocking and illegal and ordered his return to the U.S. But instead of following the law, Attorney General Bondi suspended Mr. Raveni, and after the Fourth Circuit refused to block the judge's order, the DOJ has now asked the Supreme Court to step in, and it will. A ruling has not been entered yet on the merits of the case. In a sea of authoritarian lawlessness, this case stands out. So I want to ask you, Ms. Young, in your experience and based on public reporting, do you think Mr. Raveni's actions warrant suspension?
Absolutely not. And I know Erez Raveni, he is one of the most zealous advocates in the entire department, but he would never violate his ethical duties, including candor to the court.
What does his suspension tell you about DOJ leadership and its credibility?
It tells me that it values loyalty over the law, and I question DOJ's credibility right now.
And do you believe that what DOJ has done to Mr. Abrego Garcia represents a miscarriage of justice?
I am not going to comment on a legal question like that.
I understand. Thank you for that. We're living through one of the most shameful moments in our country's history, and it's incumbent on every one of us to fight back against this lawlessness. Your presence here is an important signal to the rest of the country that we are doing that. Thank you again, Ranking Member Raskin and Senator Schiff, for convening this hearing. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Welch from the great state of Vermont and a great champion of the rule of law.
Thank you. And it's wonderful to see my colleague from Vermont here representing.
I have to read
Thank
something to you after this is done. You do not want to miss
I'm
it.
interested in talking to you about why
You do not.
attorneys in the culture of law as you saw it and what you experienced. I'll start with you, Mr. Crosswell. You know, it's so amazing, the code of kind of, you're a Marine and a lawyer. Duty, honor, loyalty. I mean, just talk about the culture and why a culture is important. Not just personal values of an individual, but an individual is part of a team who's part of a culture that is the responsibility, when you're in that, to reinforce the positive values. Just talk to me a little bit about that and then how that was challenged with what you faced.
Thank you, Senator. You're right. My first job in public service was as a Marine officer, and you're taught to always take the hard right over the easy wrong. And as an officer, you teach the people that you lead the same thing.
Dinesh D'Souza's a fucking clown on, you know, like the three-ring circus when they send the fucking clowns out. That's the people you just described.
When you work for the government, you have an enormous amount of power.
Right.
You have to be a check on yourself, so to speak. And so when I was in the Marine Corps, I defended Marines accused of crimes at courts martial. And there were certain clients that I got acquitted at trial. They were found not guilty. That wasn't because the prosecutors failed at their job. That was because they did their job, because they provided me with the evidence where I could defend my client. That's how it's supposed to be done.
Right.
And we need that in every U.S. Attorney's office.
No, thank you. Ms. Oyer, you know, that's an incredible decision to resign, and it's resigning from a job you love and working with people that you respect and admire. and then obviously the personal and professional implications that you're going to have to deal with for some time. So obviously there was a commitment to a culture that you saw being breached, and I'm going to ask you just to elaborate a bit on that.
So I was actually fired. The decision was taken out of my hands.
Well, you knew what would happen.
Yes.
You were fired. Yeah, I'm
that
sorry.
My role in the department was becoming increasingly untenable every day. It was becoming more and more difficult every day to do the job in a way that was consistent with my values and my obligations as an attorney. And honestly, on some level, it was a relief to be fired, to take the decision out of my hands,
Right.
although it required me to leave behind a mission that I cared deeply about and a team of people who I care deeply about. And I take some heart in the fact that they are still there carrying on the good work.
And you literally had a couple of armed marshals en route to your home when your teenage child was home alone?
That's correct.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to go back to you, Mr. Crosswell. Do you treat subordinates that way? I mean, is that at all acceptable?
No, Senator.
All right. And Ms. Cohen, you were friends with our beloved Mr. Raskin's son, and we've heard a lot about him. And I can only imagine the kind of commitment to public service you had and found a way when you accepted an opportunity to work at a major and prestigious law firm. Tell me about how you saw being in Skadden Arps, a major Wall Street, really world law firm, is being also an opportunity for you to live your values as an attorney, your commitment to justice, and also have an opportunity to work for folks who otherwise wouldn't be represented.
Absolutely. In part, I'm realizing that it was just very good marketing, but I do think that while I was on the job, I had unlimited pro bono hours. It was perhaps the most important thing to me when selecting a law firm.
Yeah, we could probably clip that. Yep.
Because I wanted to get trained up on the private sector things. My past work was in public education, and I needed to understand how those things work. It drew me to finance. But I devoted anywhere from 20 to 33% of my hours to pro bono every year. And ultimately, that is why I resigned. I'd love to say it was an abstract rule of law, anything else, but I did a decent amount of immigration pro bono representation, and actions by this administration are making it very clear that that is soon going to be viewed, or already is viewed, as adverse to the administration, despite the fact that it is just to allow people to survive when they are fleeing harm and persecution and death. And I couldn't stay at a place that I knew was on the verge of not allowing me to take representations that the president viewed as adverse, knowing what he views as adverse to him.
Right. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I want to thank all of our witnesses for testifying today. Everyone in this room
Tom, be safe.
Grew up in a period since World War II where we were used to seeing a world that was ever increasing in its freedoms. We saw walls come down. We saw new nations born. We saw the ever greater ability to express ourselves, to practice our faith.
The American Bar
to associate
Association,
with whom we
the
would.
lawyers
And we came to believe it was
association.
inexorable. We came to believe that it was like the laws of gravity. Or it was, as Martin Luther King said, the moral arc of the universe always bending towards justice. Until all of a sudden it wasn't bending towards justice. And we've come to realize, much to our shock, that there's nothing inevitable about this. There's nothing inevitable about democracy or democratization, that this experiment in this country, this great experiment, self-governance, now 2.5 centuries old, is not inevitable. It was improbable at its start. And we've witnessed something we never would have imagined in this country. We have witnessed with incredible rapidity the creation of a climate of fear by this administration. We see universities afraid to speak out, to defend their own students, to defend their own academic freedom. You see universities rushing to make deals with the administration. You see universities cowed into silence, not stepping up to defend other universities. You see members of the press excluded from public events because they don't use the administration's favored parlance. And you don't see other members of the press in solidarity with them. You see law firms rush to cut separate deals. You see lawyers purged from the Department of Justice. You see FBI agents purged from the Bureau. You see scientists purged from their agencies. A wholesale effort to weed out and drive out anyone of independent thinking, anyone who will stand up and defend the rule of law or science or the freedom of thought or expression, right down to ordinary citizens who are now afraid. If the government of the United States can pluck a man off the street and send him to a prison in El Salvador without any kind of due process or any process whatsoever, then no one is safe. And if the government's response to that is to discipline a lawyer who dares to speak the truth to a court, then no one is safe. And the answer to this climate of fear, there really is only one answer, and you're seeing it today, and that is courage. We must demonstrate courage in the face of this fear. In this very committee room, or one like it, Joseph McCarthy and his allies made the country afraid and caused people to inform on each other and betray each other, allowed people and to be driven out of the government and to be persecuted. And we wondered how that could be. We wondered how could so many people be complicit. Well, now we know. Now we know. Now we have witnessed it in our own time. But I will say this of the brave witnesses who have come and testified today. All of the rest of us have to ask ourselves, looking back at the McCarthy era, what would we have done? What would we have done?
March and April are hard.
If we were faced with the loss of our jobs, if we were faced with the loss of our livelihood, if we were faced with the loss of our position, what would we have done? Well, you don't have to ask that question. Your being here is all the answer anyone could demand, and we are deeply, deeply grateful to you. I yield to my colleague and friend, Jamie Raskin.
Thank you, Senator Schiff, and thank you for your leadership. It's been an honor to conduct this proceeding with you, with all these wonderful guests and everybody looking at the proceedings across America. And thank you to our great witnesses here. Ben Franklin once said, "Make yourself a sheep and the wolves will eat you." And you are four people who have not made yourselves into sheep. You've shown us how to stand tough and stand strong against tyranny and despotism. And you and all of my colleagues here are speaking today in the spirit of our Constitution. We have an anti-monarchical Constitution. We've got no kings here. We have the freedom of speech. We've got no queens here, no emperors here. And we have no slaves here, and we have no serfs here. Just people, citizens, all of us together, standing equally under the Equal Protection Clause. We have an anti-monarchical Constitution. It forbids titles of nobility. It was so important to the framers. Congress cannot award or recognize titles of nobility. We've got an anti-cruelty Constitution. The Eighth Amendment bans cruel and unusual punishment. We've got an anti-corruption Constitution. It guarantees due process to everyone. It guarantees equal protection under the laws, as well as freedom of speech and freedom of the press and free assembly, the right to petition government for redress of grievances, free exercise of religion, no establishment of religion. And so we say to the courts, as Ms. Cohen said, you're an important line of defense. I don't think that you're the last line of defense. I think the people will always be the last line of defense, but you're a significant line of defense for us right now. We have 68 court orders that have been rendered by federal district courts, preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders against all of the lawlessness that's taken place. And we hope that the U.S. Supreme Court, which we know Donald Trump bragged about having packed and stacked in order to overthrow Roe versus Wade and get the Dobbs decision. We know that the court may be in a different posture on some of these things, but we ask all of the justices to live their oaths of office to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. I ask them, I ask everybody in Congress, I ask everybody in the country to go back and read the Steele seizure case from 1952, where President Truman ordered the seizure of the steel mills in the middle of a war, in the middle of the Korean War. He said it was a national security crisis and we couldn't afford to have a strike and a standoff between the unions and the management. And so he just ordered that all of the steel mills be seized. And the Supreme Court came back with a remarkable decision saying the president gets his power only from either the explicit text of the Constitution or from Congress. And Congress had already rejected the idea that the president should have the power to seize the steel mills. And so the court said in a 6-3 decision, the Constitution doesn't grant you that power, and Congress forbade you that power. And Justice Jackson, in his famous concurrence, said, at that point, your power, Mr. President, is at its lowest ebb. But here's the remarkable thing about the decision, which is indeed the paradigm for interpreting executive power. As Justice Amy Coney Barrett said in her confirmation hearings over here in the Senate, the remarkable thing about the decision is that there were 9 Democrats, most of them New Deal liberal Democrats, on the Supreme Court at that moment. President Roosevelt had been in for 4 terms. Truman had come in. These people, they were friends. A lot of the justices had served in the Roosevelt administration or in the Truman administration. Some had been in the Department of Justice. And in fact, the 3 justices in dissent taunted them, saying, you said this was totally fine. You wanted this to be a power that the president would have. And now you're on the court and you're saying the president does have this power. But it was really their finest moment because they distinguished their roles as partisans when they were either in Congress or in the administration from their role as justices upholding the Constitution and the rule of law. And they said, despite the fact that this was their team, they could not allow the president to overstep his bounds in that way. And after the case was rendered, Justice Jackson was so nervous that President Truman would never speak to him again, that he had a dinner party with all the justices, and he invited President Truman to come over there. And there was a round of toasts, and Truman said to Justice Jackson, well, I don't know if I like your law that much, but this is a hell of a good bourbon you're serving us tonight. So we hope that the justices will live up to their titles. They're the only jurists in the federal system who get the title of justice. Everybody else is a judge, and we hope these justices will act with justice. And I want to just say finally about the law firms, because I've been working with Senator Blumenthal and with Ms. Scanlon on the question of the law firms. There is no safety in appeasement. There just is no safety in appeasement. These law firms have bargained away
all the Pauls are here. They've checked
$40 million, tens of millions of dollars in pro bono assistance. Well, now, if Donald Trump gets to choose who your clients are going to be, right, and you're going to end up representing, I don't know, the National Rifle Association, the National Right to Life Committee, you name it, anti-environment, anti-LGBTQ, whatever it is. Now, not only are you going to have to put the resources of your firm into these causes on behalf of a president who just shook your firm down, but you're not going to be able to take any of the clients on the other side, because that's a conflict now.
I found his
You are
the
conflicted
commentary
out
interesting.
of representing the pro-environment, the pro-choice groups, the unions, if you've taken the people on the other side. There is no safety in appeasing a tyrant. There's no safety in selling out. And these people are teaching us what the meaning of the rule of law really is. Ben Franklin said, we must all hang together or we will all hang separately. Let's hang together right now. Let's stand tall, America, for our Constitution, our rule of law, and our democracy.
Please share this. I'm going to put the link to the entire
Thank
thing.
you, Ranking Member Raskin, and we are adjourned.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate it. Let me go ahead and link this. I don't even, you can share my broadcast. You can share this broadcast. I don't care. I just want you to share it. I think this is a very important hearing, and it should be just the first of many. So that should be the hearing that we just watched, God willing. It's not something stupid. And then I just found this because, I'm just always poking around. Poking. I'm poking over here. Poking. So in my poke, I always end up sometimes in a pile of shit. So sometimes share both. They might need to laugh. You never know. But here I'm diving a little bit into murky water. But as I scan this, when I'm not really interested in economics, because I have a very troubled past with the whole Wall Street scene, right? I have a very troubled relationship with Wall Street for many, many reasons. There's many decades of problems. So, to that point, the Besant video. I think I haven't shared that. I don't think I've shared that, Jane. Yeah, I have to do that. And then there's another one that I just made this morning. Right before this broadcast, I dropped another video that is the comparison between the Joe Rogan short and the interview in that and the little time that I spent with that guy who interviewed me. It's both things in one little 2-minute video. I just put that out on my thing. But what I'm fascinated by, I will definitely do that. What I'm fascinated by is the fact that no one, I've kind of casually looked for what's Peter Thiel saying these days, or what is whatever saying? What is David Sachs saying? What is Mark Andreessen saying? What is I don't know, butthole surfers saying? I'm not sure. Whoever, right? And then always, I don't check this very often, but today I just happened to say, I wonder if Curtis Yarvin has anything to say about this. And lo and behold, that bitch does. So I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but I will give you kind of or I'll just jump into the middle of it, because that's what I want to go to, the parts where he just says what he's trying to say and not all the other bullshit. Not all the other fucking libertarian navel gazing noosphere. Anyway, this bitch, Curtis Yarvin, I think, I could be wrong, I think that he is part of the influence, and that's why I may not be hearing loudly from Peter Thiel, because it's kind of going according to plan. So let me break it down. No. All right. So he wrote on April 5th. Wait, where is he? Wait, let's get Curtis up on the screen. Come on, Curtis. We're going to talk about all your feelings. We're going to have a session, Curtis. Let's have a therapy session. We're going to evaluate some of the things you say, Curtis. I'm going to do a live therapy session with Curtis Yarvin. Here you go. That's what this segment is. That's right. Where is Curtis? Wait, now I'm kind of getting all kind of confused. So I gotta gotta be mindful here. Hold on. Let me find him. This is really important. It's very important that we have him on here. Where is he? God damn, you hide. Are you hiding from me? Oh, there's just so many pictures of people in this. Holy shit. Uh-oh. I think he slipped away during the night. Where are you, bitch? Oh, there he is. Okay. So sit down and have a seat on my couch, Mr. Yarvin. Actually, Mr. Yarvin, you're gonna have to sit like really on top of Mr. Putin over here because otherwise we can't see your shit. Okay, so we're gonna put you right behind the number sign. But you're sitting on weed, so calm down. Okay. So this douche whistle that you see in the corner there. Yeah, that's what he really looks like. Oh, no, I'm not shitting you. No, I'm not shitting you. That's what this douche whistle really looks like. Look at that kombucha gut he has. Yeah, he has problematic hair. He's a problematic fucking existence. Anyway, that's Curtis Yarvin, and he wrote this shit. The problem with Trumpian mercantilism. You can't just pour fertilizer, aka shit, into water and get a tree. Duh. This is his Substack, or I don't know what it is. It's a Substack. All right, so I get messages from sad people who still believe in free trade. I urge them to read Carlyle on the condition of England question. I won't. All right, so, okay, here we go. Here's a modernized version. Suppose you had a drone, which was a time machine. It could visit history, even alternate history, but only to fly over and take a video. When you watch the video of the two versions of a city, you decide which one is better. And then you check the actual statistics to see if you were right. Imagine any independent observer looking at any minor American city or town in 1955 and 2025 with this condition of America drone. All right, are you with me, kids? After comparing enough footage to be sure, you will find the idea that 2025 is doing better than 1955 outright preposterous. Huh? Now, view 2025, but if America only, here's the important part he's bearing, but if America only imported minerals we couldn't mine ourselves, crops we couldn't grow ourselves, etc., etc. Do you really believe ours is the bestest 2025? Check the actual statistics to see if you are right. Unfortunately, you can only do this with the real 1955. I don't understand a word motherfucking thing that he is saying right now. It's the dad bod you don't want. Of course, I'm doing a bit. I'm trying to be funny. What? The idea that you would believe a number over your own eyes is an insult. Oh, I see. So he says the drone footage. My daughter does work in the industry, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, she's been in the industry since a long time ago, 2017. But yeah, so she's right now she's working in post-production, but she's done camera work mostly for the visual effects team, doing camera work and other jobs on set. So she's been on set for movies, and then also right now she's more in the TV stuff, more in the Netflix kind of stuff right now. But yeah, she's working hard. Oh man, her days are way too long. Right now she's working 2 projects at once, and it's a fucking nightmare. But yeah, she's a camera woman. She actually won an award at a Long Island Film Festival for one of the shorts that she was the cinematographer on and the camera operator. So she's very good. She's very good at lighting. She's very good at camera. She's really an exceptional filmmaker. Oh, thanks. Because that was, not the most ideal conditions. But she'll be so delighted to hear that, actually. She'll be so delighted to hear that. But yeah, no, she does have, that was the joke. It's like all that schooling, and here you are carrying an iPhone for your mother in a dinosaur suit. Oh, how far you've come, darling. Anyway, I was so grateful to her, and I told her how grateful I was to her for spending part of her very precious Saturday where she is not working, to not catch up on sleep and rather come out with me in the heat and do that. So I told her. Oh, we have a running joke about that. She actually, in all of her student and student films that she worked on, where she was like driving story, if there was a mother involved, consistently, and she's going to laugh at this, consistently the mother was dying or dead, and she would take one of her childhood photos of us and use it as a prop. So the running joke is that she was killing me in every movie she ever made. Oh my God, she's so much classier than I am. I can't even tell you that. She is she is so calm, cool, and collected, and not fussy about she doesn't take shit that seriously. She really focuses on her job. It really does. But anyway, so she'll be mad because she's like, that's not what I do. But I swear to God, hand on a Bible somewhere. I swear to God, that's what I think anyway. But I could be wrong. I could be overreacting. Anyway, let's get back to this Nimrod. Okay, so check the actual statistics. Okay, so blah, blah. Okay, so this was dumb. I'm sorry I read that paragraph. It was one of the dumb ones. She's a sweetheart. She is really a genuine sweetheart. She cares very much, and she's really taken care of her mother the last few years. She's really been the savior. Yet again, she saved me from drinking, and now she's saving me from just like going crazy and being a crazy woman out there. This is just one of the ways in which Trump right now is right and the experts are wrong. See what he's doing here, okay? Notice what Curtis Dadbod Yarvin really is trying to, this is how they telegraph, like how they really like talk to each other. I just don't, I have to believe that somewhere this information is feeding into people like Scott Bessent and Howard Nutlicker. I don't know through whom, but right? So this is just interesting insight into the thinking of the lead incel, the king of the incels, who is somehow getting into, or at least talking about our economic strategy in the moment of what is happening. Yarvin is not starving. He's a chick magnet. Yeah, I'm sure he thinks he is. I'm sure he thinks he is. Slug bod. I like that. She was so cool talking with everyone and you and filming you and the crowd. It was really, oh, that's so great. Peace, love. She had a great time, she said. I had a great time. She's a great, that's just she does do a great job. I'm really proud. So thank you for saying that. That's going to mean a lot to her. All that stuff means so much to her. She really thinks you guys are great. Karen! Dun 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 dun! Dun, 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 dun. Where's our song? I can't even remember where the buttons are. It's been so long.
Yeah.
No, that's not it. No, that's not it. Wait.
Enough is enough.
No. No. No, I don't want psycho music. No. Oh, there you go. Oh, Karen, thank you for being a member. I like that. Ooh, that could be the song. I dig that. And it'll just change every time because I won't remember what I sang the last time. Well, I hope it's the best 99 cents you ever spent, doll. Yeah, I do. Thank you. That's really nice of you, Karen. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, wait. We need to, why isn't it doing this thing where it does the alert? What the fuck? What is that? Mute event sounds. No, I don't want to mute event sounds. Come on now. I want to do that. Wait, I need the mini feed. Okay, I'm going to fuck this up if I do this. All right. Anyway. Anyway. Thank you, Karen. We're going to get you your little shiny box in a minute somewhere. Here's insight into what Yarvin, who is definitely influential within this administration. So that's really all the credibility I want to give this, because I don't have any insight, but I just found it weirdly interesting how much this sounds to me like someone trying to telegraph to the administration what to do next or how to approach. This is just one of the ways in which Trump is right and experts are wrong. But the problem with Trumpian mercantilism is the problem with Trumpian everything. Trump always has the right reflexes, but a reflex is not a plan, just like a kiss is not a contract. Neo-reactionary civilization, noosphere, Ubermensch, but noosphere, rule of the wise. It is not his job, but the job of his admin to translate reflexes into plans. Don't really get on him. While executing with great energy and enthusiasm, the administration has had a rocky start in this translation. A reflex without a plan is not action, but the illusion of action. Action is defined by its purpose. The only purpose of a reflex, this is like a Duran Duran song. Right? Reflex is I'm going to sing it like that. The only purpose of a reflex is to do the right thing. He writes conducive to this. The purpose of an action is a step toward an end state. A reflex has no end or intent. An action is proactive. A reflex is reactive. And an action is strategic. A reflex is tactical, and so on. See? Curtis wrote it like that. I swear to God, that bitch sang that in his head when he was writing it. Okay, whatever that meant. Why, don't you use them? Why, oh, just lose him. All right, because of the influence of libertarianism, power flex, and the beauty and power of spontaneous order, not to mention the essentially mythic characteristics of their historical faith. When thinking inside a myth, we suffer from a just world fallacy by definition. This guy writes where really smart people will understand what he gets, what he's writing on like the first thing, and I will be like, what? That just passed over me like a wave, like I was laying on backwards on the beach. So whatever, and then it goes away. The conservative tends to operate in terms of reflexes. Nature, he assumes, will provide. So right now, what I'm hearing is he's telling the administration, hey, you know what? You actually have to do some shit. I understand you're executing on the vision that we've all shared in all our various writings and whatever conferences and, Zoom calls we've had. But you got to actually do something, sir. So that's what I get from that that last line, actually, that's all he wrote. That's the only place I get it from. Providence will get it done. Providence will provide. Providence will defund the bad and fund the good. Oh, I mean, your movement is called neo-reactionary, dude. Yeah. The purpose of the Providence will pay the lawyers. Providence, see, this is a direct Trump dig. The purpose of the reflex is not to accomplish these things, but to show Providence that we are worthy of her favor. What? What fucking Shire Hobbit fucking Smeagol elf princess Viggo Mortensen shit is this? What? The fundamental hurdle of any project is spiritual. Come on, just get yourself out of the way. Just move yourself out of the way. Ride the elephant. If you know, you know. Chip. The result is a kingdom of mere gestures. A cargo cult empire which cannot last long. Closely related to providential thinking is the belief that America is a young country. Lol. This guy's a fucking incel. I'm telling you right now. Unfuckable. Unbloody fuckable. Closely related is the blah, blah, blah. America has every sign of old age that an aging empire has ever possessed. In the young, everything heals as if by providence. In the old, nothing fixes itself. In case none of you Zoomers, that's who he's assuming. That is fucking shameful right there. He's assuming his audience is Zoomers. No, it's all the OSINT researchers that look at your stupid ass. That's who's reading you. Oh, and One Eye. Okay. Because he finds validation in a group of other neo-reactionary automatons. Pretend boys. Pinocchios. He's with the Pinocchios that haven't been touched by the blue fairy yet. Jesus Christ. But in case about your unabused is 50, this is what happened. Things just don't heal. While a human being is not a salamander, an old human is really not a salamander. Like 6 months ago, I sprained my ankle. It still hurts a little. Also, did you know aging is exponential? Okay, let me see this. All right. I don't want to go down to his kind of bullshit. Because it got interesting down here. Okay, a new national production infrastructure. This is again where I believe that he's basically laying out where this all might be going. Okay, let me just put it that way. Where do we go from here? Right? With this whole nonsense of trade. A new national production infrastructure needs to be designed and built because this is America. A new supply chain should not just be one big company. However, but everyone I know has a big butt. Hold on. I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this so I can get into the camera a little better. Okay. However, when you are doing anything fast, centralization is the most efficient, especially when chicken-egg conflicts abound. For example, consider a plan to reshore American consumer goods. Everything you can buy in a Walmart will be made in America. Cool. But by when? By who? How? Where? With what equipment? What personnel? What raw materials? In any modern supply chain, many links in the chain are useless without the other links in the chain. Duh. If these links have to establish themselves as fully independent enterprises, imagine building the first car this way. Who needs carburetors or mufflers when there are no windshield wipers? It is near impossible for any of them to get started. If our car companies died, the U.S. would find ourselves in the automotive position of Cuba, able to import cars and able to repair them, but not able to make them. I'm just going to make this a little bigger over here. So I'm looking at the right direction. Too many monitors. Okay. Tariffs provide, I promise I'm going to get you out of your pain fast. Tariffs provide a latent financial incentive, a kind of ambient corporate nutrition to reshoring enterprises. That's all. Even to harness that nutrition is a lot of cellular work. And its concentration, even with the initial Trump tariffs, is probably insufficient to nourish any significant growth of even primary industry, let alone a full supply chain. You can't just pour fertilizer, blah, blah, blah. Think of a supply chain like a human body. Okay, whatever. Therefore, now this is where it got kind of good. Who? Well, the hominid. What do you mean the hominid? What do you mean? He's saying that the network state gray men weren't ready for killing the economy yet. Lol. Lol. All right. I promise I'm almost done. Therefore, I don't think we have a live video of it. I don't think so. This is just a Substack entry from a couple days ago. This is like April 5th Substack he wrote. After the market, in fact, wasn't April 5th, what is that, Saturday? Yeah, he wrote it after the market crashed on Friday. Oops. Oops, I did it again. I played with your heart. All right, here we go, bro. Bro Magnan. Stick a sweaty sock in the sun. All right, okay, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, it's better to print one out in a tank from cell scaffolds laced with stem cells and growth hormones. We pump blood through these scaffolds till they mature into organs. Elapsed time, 26 weeks or 20 with the high pressure package. Obviously, we don't print a brain. Duh. But if we did, it would be ready to take the SAT. He's talking about centralization. In exchange for this instabody, we accept the price of central planning. In the long run, firms are as small as possible, and markets will send the price signals that keep the body healthy. But to build the body, we need a big, complicated central printer. This is the privatization of the federal government. Wah, 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 wah. Generally, the skills to make anything still exist in the U.S. Sometimes they need to be enormously expanded. Did you learn to code? Then AI put you out of work? Bummer. Maybe you can still be a machinist. AI will never come for the machinists. That's important, I think. What would a serious industrial reshoring look like? Picture it as a World War II style project. What would General Groves do? Dude would plan. He would make a central plan like Stalin. He would build all the parts of the centralized supply chain right down to the consumer products, making these parts logically independent organs that will become self-governing and self-financing companies once the whole body is running. So is he proposing communism? Like a centralized body opens all the industries? Is that what I'm understanding? I'm sorry, I'm reading this with you, so I apologize. I'm not like the professional analyst that goes, I read this and I want to tell you the most important parts. Yeah, a world-class prognosticator living in his mom's subterranean basement. Yeah, unfortunately, he's probably living in a big house in Palo Alto. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, but at first it would be somewhere between a vertically integrated manufacturer like, I don't know, Tesla, and a Japanese style, won't say these correctly, forgive me, Karutsu, Zaibatsu, Korean Chaebol, etc. These were created for the same purpose, rapid, systematic industrialization force-fed by finance. Network states. Maybe you want 2 or 3 competing ones. Bah! That's the network states. So they keep each other reasonably fit. Goodbye, states. Goodbye, regular states. Say goodbye to your regular state. Just say goodbye. Say goodbye. Sorry. That was inside my head. I didn't mean to let that out. The financial energy for the creation of this system should come from 3 places. VC finance, which knows how to pick them and has tons of money. Government debt. Debt is fine when it finances tangible investment, not consumption. And of course, American consumers. Because they're going to pay. They're going to give you, that's where the money comes from. Tariffs create the incentive for American consumers to buy American. If there is no way to buy American, or if the incentive is too low, the nutrient just hangs in the water and ferments. The tariff is just a consumption tax, which is fine, but has to be understood as what it is. Because taxes change prices, including capital prices, it is best to plan them carefully. If the plant is not ready for the nutrient, just fucking say it, okay? The incentive should be crafted so that it appears when the plant will be ready in just the concentrations it will need. I don't know what that really means. Trump's tariffs seem too high in the near term, too low in the long term. I don't know what any of that just fucking meant. Ideally, the U.S. has a plan to end manufacturing imports entirely within the next 4 years. Does any of the media know about this thing? By ramping up tariffs to the point where they are simply unaffordable. Given the security that it will be impossible to import toasters except some kind of insane Toff & Sons German luxury toaster in 4 years, even venture capitalists will see a legitimate profit opportunity in investing in toaster factories. Oh my God. It might be best to centralize new American heavy industry into specific zones rather than trying to reintroduce industry into even old brownfield industrial areas. Regulation can be relaxed in special industrial areas. Endorheic basins are a good place for new industrial chemical plants. Pollution debt is another kind of debt. It can be easier to get a mature, clean industry by passing through an early polluting phase than imposing regulations and cleaning up the pollution. Most light factories, though, can go anywhere. Most of all, industrial self-sufficiency is only one of the purposes of such a project and not the main one. The main purpose is to match labor demand to labor supply, to give every American not just a job, but a good job matched to his or her skill set. Doesn't it sound perfect? Just like a fucking puzzle. Oh, sorry. Okay, everybody calm down. Curtis Yarvin, get out of my microphone. All right, I'm almost done. I'm sorry. To give everybody ideally, no one should even have to move. But moving is not the end of the world. Get over it. Get over it, Grandma. You're going to Poughkeepsie. A major piece of the design for reshoring is actually an understanding of the human component, the labor supply that needs to be reemployed. Who are they? Where are they? What are they used to doing? What are they generally good at? What can they be taught? And what can't they be taught? Well, this sounds a lot like serfs, frankly. One way to define this question is to imagine if the government gave every adult American a button to resign from their life. No, not suicide. Just what? Not what? You could just say, this isn't working out for me. And the government would say, okay, you'll go here, you'll live there, you'll do that. And at the end of the process, you'll have a new life with a new career that works for you and your family more or less permanently. Maybe where you are, maybe in Boise. If it has to be Boise, is that so bad? Personally, given modern technology, especially the AI robotic stuff coming down the pike, I'm not super convinced that this can be done with just factories. The age of Dickensian factory labor with its human robots is over. The dark factory arrives. Economically, a robot or even a machine is just another type of foreigner without any of the human externalities that foreigners can create. They use less healthcare, but more electricity. A guest worker is half a foreigner. The robot is a Gastarbeiter from the machine world whose support contract is his remittance. The ultimate tariff is simply the requirement that goods be made by hand by humans. In this future America, when we buy clothes, we have to buy them on Etsy, and Etsy's rules are enforced by the FBI. Every time they capture a floating brick of Temu shirts dropped by some fleeing speedboat, they display it on a card table for the local news. Quote, these Chinese junk clothes were trying to take American housewives' businesses away. What is this made up in his head? Did he write this in his head? Fuck that. Okay. He's not that smart, but for some reason that is a voice, not the voice. Don't get it twisted. Don't get excited. It's not the voice, but it's a voice. That's all. It's just a voice. He is not the all-seeing knowing, but to me, information is power, and having the input of a very recent, it's this guy, Curtis Yarvin. And where is he? Where are you, baby? Oh, there you are. It's this guy. I'm going to put him on the fire. I'm going to light your butt on fire. I'm going to light your butt on fire. That's Curtis Yarvin right there. Oh, wait. Hulk Hogan getting booed off stage? I'm not sure I really want to. I'll be honest. Is that terrible? I don't really care. Yeah, he's a Chan blogger stuck in a positive feedback loop. He has way too many up thumbs or whatever on Reddit. That's all. Fuck him. But yeah, he Dickensian factory. Yeah, right. Make unions great again, I guess. I hope. Well, sorry that it couldn't be better. Okay, Paul. Jiminy Crickets, where is it? Where the frick is it? I'll find it. Hold on. I'm finding it. My God, pushy. Hulk Hogan getting booed off stage. Woo. Oh yeah, that's right. I was gonna play my stuff. I forgot. Let me see him getting booed off stage. Oh my God, are you kidding me? You don't even just come up with the clip first thing. Oh, here we go. 2 months ago. Wait. Man, can they just sort them automatically by Is it at booed at WWE? Oh wait. Is it the boot at WWE? I don't know where the clip is, you guys. Come on now. Don't do that. I can't do that. I can't turn on that dime. I'm not that good at this. But let me I can, however, find my own channel, thankfully, still. And I do kind of want to play these videos. Let's see. Is it this one? Wait. Oh, that's the sale. That's the State Department. Which one is that one? Where's the Scott Bessent one? God, sometimes it's so dumb. The way things are portrayed. It must be this one. Oh, it must be this one.
Does that sort of corruption and bribery?
Hold on. I mean, this might not be it. I apologize. Actually, this probably isn't it. Damn it. Dang it. Acid casualty hair. That is a good one. Na, 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 na. I think I've had hair like that though in my life, so I can't really be a hater. He just needs a good, like, I would recommend my hair products for him, frankly. Yeah, I would. Hey, get out of there, duck. Get out of there. Get out of there. Well, not you. I meant Yarvin. Oh man. He's so tough to find. Okay, hold on. Redunculous. Where are you? Yarvin, you gotta go away. You're really driving me crazy. Curtis Yarvin, you're a jerk. I really think so. How about you? Okay. The one. This is only 2 minutes. I like to make them nice and short. Okay. This one's called Meritocracy.
Of the country, does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belton Road?
Absolutely, Chairman. I see this, and I don't mind calling them out, but Captain Tory and Burkina Faso, as they.
I think I already played this, guys.
Whether it's their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime. There's a number of examples across. Even in Sudan, what's going on with the rapid support forces and in Burhan of the Sudan forces, when you get down to
yeah.
it,
Besant at the beginning. Of the last video. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I know what you mean. I'm so sorry. Yeah. The shaky guy. What did I play? Oh, I'm so dumb. God, hold on. Okay, this will be my. I'm gonna do this. I can do this. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me find. Where is he? Where's that bitch? Where are you, stupid man? Stupid man, stupid man. Where are you, stupid man? No, 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 no. Those aren't it. How do you solve a problem like Scott Bessent? How do you knock him out? All right, where is? Are you kidding me right now? You guys, you system goblins, hobgoblining in my thing. Okay, wait, where's Scott? Scott. La 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 la. Uh, 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 uh. Oh wait, is that it? No, that's not it. That's not it. Is it this one? Is he in the beginning? No, he's not.
Mark Carney.
Nope, he's not in the
He used to be the
beginning.
governor of the Bank of England.
Stop. We watched you already. Oh my god. Oh wait. Oh no. Where the hell did I play this morning? What the hell did I play? Okay, just saw it's public. I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot. Which means she behaved like a patriot in some way. The hearing we watched. Oh, wait, what? Oh my god, I'm so confused. This is terrible, SB. I'm so confused. All right, so Vice Admiral Shoshana Chatfield, the U.S. military representative to the NATO Military Committee, has been fired. Yeah, Besant. Where's my fucking? I'm just like losing my mind right now. I'm sorry. It's really my brain. I'm having a terrible brain breakdown. Just saw it's public, so I can talk about it. VW, Volkswagen has been holding vehicles in U.S. ports trying to negotiate with White House. Will put labeling on vehicles with import fee to show the amount of tariff paid. Oh, holy ship. That's so true. What do we got from Kyle Cheney coming in hot? Coming in hot, hot, hot. Wait, what? Oh yeah, I don't want to show you him. I'm sorry. I was gonna watch that video later. All right, here we go. Hold on. I'll fix it. I know you're looking at Peter Thiel. Just relax. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. These are always too small. Okay. What do we got here, gal? Just in, the Supreme Court has vacated Judge Boasberg's orders barring Trump's removals under the Alien Enemies Act, largely over venue. Is this the habeas corpus thing? But emphasizes the administration must give reasonable notice for targets to challenge their deportations in court. Oh, yeah, sure. Per curiam, this matter concerns the detention and removal of Venezuelan nationals believed to be members of TDA, an entity, State Department, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. The president issued proclamation number 0, blah, 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 to detain and remove Venezuelan nationals, quote, who are members of TDA. Invocation of the AEA regarding the invasion of the United States by Chando Wagra, blah, blah. 5 detainees in a putative class sought injunctive and declaratory relief against the implementation of and their removal under the proclamation. Initially, the detainees sought relief in habeas, among other causes of action, but they dismissed their habeas claims. On March 15th, the District Court for the District of Columbia issued 2 temporary restraining orders preventing any removal of the named plaintiffs and preventing removal under the AEA of a provisionally certified class consisting of, quote, all non-citizens in U.S. custody who are subject to the proclamation. Minute order, or is a minute order? It's a minute order. Okay. The D.C. court denied the government's emergency motion to stay the orders. The government then applied to this court seeking to vacatur of the orders. We construe these TROs as appealable injunctions. Here's our citation for that. We grant the application and vacate the TROs. The detainees seek equitable relief against the implementation of the proclamation and against their removal under the AEA. They challenge the government's interpretation of the act and assert that they do not fall within the category of removable alien enemies. But we do not reach those arguments. Challenges to removal under the AEA, a statute which largely precludes judicial review, Ludicky as he's quoting, must be brought in habeas, holding that habeas was the only cause of action available to challenge deportation under immigration statutes that precluded judicial intervention beyond what was necessary to vindicate due process rights. Regardless of whether the detainees formally request release from confinement because their claims for relief quote, necessarily imply the invalidity of their confinement and removal under the AEA, their claims fall within the core of the writ of habeas corpus and thus must be brought in habeas. And immediate physical release is not the only remedy under the federal writ of habeas corpus, explaining that a capital prisoner may seek to overturn his death sentence in habeas by analogy to seeking release. For core habeas petitions, jurisdiction lies in only one district, the District of Confinement. And I believe they were detained they're in Texas. The detainees are confined in Texas, so venue is improper in the District of Columbia. But where were they before? As a result, the government is likely to succeed on the merits of this action. What? The detainees also sought equitable relief under summary removal. Although judicial review under the AEA is limited, we have held that an individual subject to detention and removal under statute is entitled to judicial review as to questions of interpretation and constitutionality of the act, as well as whether he or she is in fact an alien enemy 14 years of age or older. Under the proclamation, the term alien enemy is defined to include all Venezuelan citizens 14 years of age or older who are members of TDA, are within the United States, and are not actually naturalized or lawful permanent residents of the United States. The detainees' rights against summary removal, however, are not currently in dispute. The government expressly agrees that TDA members subject to removal under the Alien Enemies Act get judicial review. That's a quote. Reply in support of application to vacate. It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in the context of removal proceedings. Okay, so there's a fucking precedent. It is well established. Okay, So the detainees are entitled to notice and opportunity to be heard, appropriate to the nature of the case. More specifically, in this context, AEA detainees must receive notice after the date of this order that they are subject to removal under the Act. The notice must be afforded within a reasonable time and in such a manner as will allow them to actually seek habeas relief in the proper venue before such removal occurs. For all the rhetoric of the dissents, today's order in per curiam confirms that the detainees subject to removal orders under the AEA are entitled to notice and an opportunity to challenge their removal. The only question is which court will resolve that challenge. For the reasons set forth, we hold that the venue lies in the District of Confinement. The dissents would have the court delay resolving that issue, requiring, given our decision today, that the process begin anew down the road. We see no benefit in such wasteful delay. The application to vacate the orders of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia presented to the Chief Justice, blah, blah, blah. It is so ordered. What did you say? Oh, wait, you have a New York Times. New York Times. New York Times. Okay, so the New York Times, let me just see if there's anything really, really super. So the detainees are confined in. Oh wait, I want to read. Okay, wait, hold on. Let's cross this T. Let's cross this T. This is a New York Times article. Supreme Court overturns lower court's block on Venezuelan deportations. Just to kind of jump here, the decision marks a victory for the Trump admin, although the ruling is narrow and focused on the proper venue for the cases rather than on the administration's use of a centuries-old law to justify its decision. The justices did not address the question of whether the Trump administration improperly categorized the Venezuelans as deportable under the Alien Enemies Act, finding the migrants had improperly challenged their deportations in Washington, D.C. The justices determined that the migrants should have raised the challenges in Texas where they were being held. The detainees are confined in Texas, blah, blah, blah. We just read that. In a concurrence, Brett Kavanaugh, I like beer. I got to get that. I got to work on some stuff. I like beer. I drink beer. We drank a lot of beer, sometimes too much beer. But they were divided. Brett Kavanaugh stressed that the justices were in agreement that the migrants should receive judicial review, which I think that's an important point that he said that, I guess, is what I'm saying. But they were divided over where the case should be heard. Yeah, they're in Texas. Doubt such disappeared people are told where they're being taken. Exactly. Think they were held in that transfer facility for deportation in Louisiana, but might recall a second such location. Yeah, there was definitely, I heard about the Texas and the Louisiana. As the court, so this is Kavanaugh. As the court stresses, the court's disagreement with the dissenters is not over whether the detainees receive judicial review of their transfers. All nine members of the court agree that judicial review is available. See, this is, I think, an important insight into the SCOTUS thinking. I don't know. I'm looking for all the little pieces of hope I can find. Okay, give me a break. The case is perhaps the most high profile of the 8 emergency applications the Trump admin has filed with the Supreme Court so far, and it presents a direct collision between the judicial and executive branches. Let's see. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Oh wait. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop there because I'm losing my mind. Without warning. The university students were told in that letter that they could be snatched at any time if they did not self-deport without warning. That's just like so antithetical to what I thought. I mean, I understand that there are communities in this country of, throughout slavery and throughout just the trafficking and subjugation of immigrants and others in this country by the white dominant class. That even in growing up in that patriarchy that was still very oppressive, right? For communities, to see that is just that the direction that it's moving is just to grow. And there should be as much outrage about what's happening right now, or there should be as much outrage for what has happened to communities who live under that scrutiny, and acknowledgement of that as we try to fight the expansion of that to include really a class war. Yeah, and sent possibly not to their country of origin, or sent back to a country that has already threatened their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Anyway, not a lot of heartening news. Although I will say those hearings that we just saw, kind of the shadow government hearing, if you will, is hugely important. It does get things on a record. And I think that was a particularly good one because we haven't heard from the federal workforce in great detail and with as much center stage as it should have, so that we understand what has transpired, like what has actually happened and how much damage has actually been wrought. Because it's always more than you're being told. I mean, that's just the way assholes think, right? If it's a criminal enterprise, they're working to obfuscate what's really happening, right? Like they're trying to confuse you by putting a penguin island on the damn tariffs thing. Okay? Because if we're talking about penguin islands being tariffed, but we're not talking about this, human rights abuse that's happening, or the overcrowding in Chrome, or students being removed, or all the other things, like, enough's enough. Like, it's too much. Anyway, thanks for coming. I will definitely, I think I'm going to skip the space tonight. I'll put a posting on. I'm whipped. I don't know why I'm so tired. I think I'm not feeling very well, actually. I think I'm going through something right now. Oh, there's my cat. But my cat would like to say goodbye. You want to say goodbye, Gus? Do you want to say goodbye? Oh, I love you. He's ready for his nap. Are you ready? Are you ready for food? Are you ready for dinner? I am. I'm ready. Aw, you are the Lolo. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Yeah, he is ready to snuggle. He's a snuggler. He's a mama's boy. That's for sure. He's a definite mama's boy. That's right. Hold my hand. Shake my hand. All right. So I will see you tomorrow morning. Whoop, 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 whoop. Oh my God. Tomorrow morning. Let me show you. I wrote down this weekend the stuff that's happening this week in Congress. Let me show you tomorrow. Look at tomorrow. Look at all that stuff. This is all the stuff. Whoops. This is all the stuff that's happening tomorrow. This is all the stuff that's happening tomorrow. Look at all that. That's so much. So I think I'm having a twice baked tomorrow too. I think there'll be, in fact, I know I will. I'm going to have a twice baked at 11 a.m. So we're having two, count them, two Lolos tomorrow. Whoop, whoop. And it's Documentary Tuesday. Get out of town. Get the F out of town. Should we do a cat documentary? What do you think, Gus? You want to do a cat documentary? You want to do a cat? Will you do something cute for the camera? Will you do something cute for the camera? No? Will you do something cute for the camera? No? Thank you. I love you. I love this cat. He does that all the time. That's how he wakes me up in the morning. Like, purr. It's a little harder in the morning. Okay, I love you guys. Have a great day. I will talk to you later. Thank you for coming to Twice Baked with Lolo. I'm Lolo, your host, and I am grateful that you were here with us today. Media literacy for everybody. All right, night. Ciao, bella. I love you guys. Get some good rest. It's only fucking Monday. Oh my God. Fuck this Monday. The hell out. All right.